Good evening and welcome to the Norfolk Planning Board meeting on February 11th, 2020. Please be advised that this meeting is being audio and videotaped for consumption at home. And therefore, should you wish to speak at some point during the meeting, please use the microphone. It's not for the people here in the room, it's for the folks at home. All right, our first item of business is Canberra Coatings Site Plan, Stormwater Management, and Earth Removal Permit Initial Hearing, and our clerk will read the notice of public hearing, please.
Notice is hereby given that in accordance with Mass General Law, Section 40A, and the Norfolk Zoning Bylaws, Section F11, a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 11th at 2020 at 7 p.m. in Room 124 at the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Mass., relative to a site plan application for property located at 360 Main Street in Norfolk, Mass. The applicant, Daniel C. Iannuzzi of Camger Coating Systems Incorporated of Norfolk, Massachusetts, is proposing construction of a new 20,000 square foot industrial building with associated parking, landscaping, lighting, and underground utilities. The applicant is also requesting a stormwater management permit and an earth removal permit. The property is located in the C3 zoning district, reference Assessors Map 2, Block 6, Lot 3-1. The plan and application are available for public inspection in the office of the Norfolk Planning Board during the hours of 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday.
Thank you.
That's all you got.
Thank you. All right, who's here to present for Canberra? Right there. Just make sure the little green light's on and you're good to go.
This is
Working?
It doesn't amplify your voice. It just
Dan Iannuzzi, the property owner at 360 Main Street. This will be the third time that we've met with you guys. We're happy that this is the first formal session. Rich, I would like to thank you for having the meeting last week for the go over the peer review. We found that to be beneficial, and I thank everyone for their time and considerations tonight. At this point, I'll turn it over to Stu Moncrief, who is the civil engineer on the project with Howard Stein and Hudson.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Again, for the record, my name's Stu Moncrief with Howard Stein Hudson, and I'm just going to go through the plans quickly. I know we're short on time. I know there's a busy agenda tonight. After I talk, I'm going to give it over to Alex Pulowski with Spec. He's going to talk about the building just a little bit. Okay.
Chad, could you move those two chairs back?
Absolutely.
Could we go to the layout and materials plan? So.
Is it this one here, Stu?
Yeah.
Correct. So, as you all know, you've seen this plan a couple of times before in various other states. Actually, no, this is not a plan.
No.
Not which one?
That should be the last plan. If we could go into the plan set and
The
go
full
to the,
plan set?
yep, and then go to the, I think, the fourth sheet. Oh, I'm sorry, the third sheet, one sheet back. Okay. So, again, we've been here a couple times informally. Since we were here the last time, this layout has really not changed significantly at all. The location of the building is really restricted by the 150-foot setback to the residential on the east, well and river constraints to the west, and then potential future expansion in the back down here. So. Parking is 42 spaces. Okay. For drainage, we're looking at a lot of green drainage. If we could go to the next sheet. Okay, so we're doing rain gardens, one small one here in the front, larger one in the back. Everything will be underground, collected through catch basins. Okay. Landscaping will be all native plants on the landscaping. This green belt here will extend per the peer review. That'll extend down to Main Street. Let's see. So upcoming, we're going to make a couple of adjustments to the site. Down in this area here, the door location's changed, so we're going to shift around the parking and the sidewalk just a little bit in that area. We will potentially be adding a driveway across the front here. That's to be determined by CAMJR. We're sort of looking at potential options for that.
That was shown on that plan that you put up originally, wasn't it?
Originally, I have paper copies if you'd like me to hand those out.
When you get time, yeah.
Based on the peer review, we are going to be looking for a couple of waivers, actually I believe 4 waivers. One for granite curbing, we're going to look for a bituminous, we'll probably do granite out by the road and then bituminous further into the site. Let's see, the sidewalk along Main Street, there's no sidewalk to connect to out there, so I think we look for a waiver on that. The pipe type, town regs call for concrete, we'd look to do plastic. And then there's a tree easement around some of the drainage facilities that we'd look for a waiver on that as well. We will need a special permit. We're going to file that along with the resubmitted plans. We'd look for a special permit for loading in the front, and actually I think it's not necessarily the loading, I think it's actually the parking. Rich, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's the parking that's associated with the loading.
Yeah.
Yeah, the actual load space, right.
Correct, correct.
Yeah, that's a,
And I think we would want to land bank some of the parking spaces. The calculations show a need for 45 spaces. We had shown originally 42. The peer review had shown had requested 45. So I think what we'd like to do is construct the spaces along the building and then basically land bank the remaining spaces for construction in the future if needed, based on the need of the site. So just so you're aware of what's going to be submitted with the revised plans. So I just mentioned the utilities in the back, the water tank, propane tanks, and those have been located based on potential future expansion of the building by 5,000 square feet, which would be in that area there. And then a potential, again, it could be a building expansion and/or completion of the site circulation all the way around the building. So that basically has been driving the location of those utilities in the back of the site. So I think that's about all I have. I mentioned the peer review. We got the peer review. Comments for that were, for the most part, pretty minor. I don't think it's going to, addressing those is not going to change the layout significantly. Some mostly just changes to the drainage.
Phil cannot be here tonight, he's under the weather.
Is he? Oh, right. Yeah. And you know what? I tried to call him today, and he was not in. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will address his comments, provide a written response to each one, and revise the plans appropriately. So with that, I will turn it over to Alex. Alex can talk about the rendering and the.
Well, before you do, you just open it up to some questions from the board here.
Sure.
One question I have is, if you're considering a driveway in the front, you're going to have to revise the the landscape plan accordingly, right? And the landscape plan is designed not only for beauty, if you will, but to block the view of the loading dock as you come down the hill, right?
Correct.
To some degree, to the degree that you can do it. And a circular driveway there will make that an even larger challenge.
Correct. Yeah, and it will affect what you see here in terms of the, we proposed this landscape berm in the front. You'll recall
yeah.
we talked about that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there's a planting bed shown in there now, so that would obviously need to be revised.
Yeah.
I think probably what we would look to do is maybe extend this grading down here, move the berm down in that area, and do a heavier planting in that area to screen
Yeah.
vehicles coming on Main Street in a westerly direction. And then Main Street coming from the south in a northerly direction, this loading dock is actually blocked fairly well by the existing building. So,
Yep,
we
yep.
can look to, kind of beef up some plantings in this area, and we would still retain a berm. It just wouldn't be as large right in the middle in front of the building.
Understood, yep, okay.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just a little concerned with what's going on right around the boundary of the properties. It looks like all the, any runoff is being channeled right towards the road, if I'm seeing that correctly. So it's steep where you're landscaping on the edge of your drive, and then there's a lot of plantings at the bottom of that, and then the grading on the other side is a little bit more gradual, but everything, is that the correct grading? Is everything being channeled out towards the street?
You're talking about in this
Yeah,
island
yeah.
here?
Well, and also, aren't those plantings, 3 rows of plantings, right on the boundary?
Correct. These, this is the green belt up
Yep.
here. And I think we may actually reduce this to a row of 2, just on the, per the discussion with the peer reviewer. Reduce it to 2, but extend it further to the south down towards Main Street in this
Yeah.
area. So, but yes, the grading will flow down here, but this will be grass. It's not going to be impervious.
Yeah, I guess was more concerned about the grading and the runoff where it's steep, right at the right side of your parking area.
This right here,
No, if you raised your finger up, just on between the plantings and the drive.
right here.
Parking lot, right on where the cars are.
Keep going,
Parking
keep going
spaces.
north, keep-
Yeah,
yeah,
so
in
it
there, right.
It just seems pretty steep. A lot of runoff's going to go there, but the
Right here?
runoff also from the other property seems to be going, everything seems to just be going towards the plantings? Is that correct, or?
No. This the parking lot here is actually lower than this is about elevation
Lower.
172 here. The parking lot is I think 152, 154
Okay.
in this area here. So basically we'd be digging into this slope here. This would be a berm that would slope down towards the site, and
Okay,
towards the park.
got it.
And the drainage goes in which direction?
In general, there's a high point kind of here, essentially at the face of the building. Everything pretty much goes to the back, including this catch basin that's down at the base of the driveway.
Okay.
That collects and is piped all the way down to the back of the site to this rain garden.
Okay.
Aaron, anything?
Nothing new. It's the same loading dock comments that you've already reiterated, Walter.
Yeah.
And then the facade that faces the street is awfully large. It would be great to break it up in some fashion, volumetrically, if possible.
Will we see some renderings of the building when you get up to?
Yeah, we have the 2 renderings that we've
Okay, good, yep. Chad, any questions?
No additional comments.
Okay, all right. Please, why don't you take over?
So Alex Pulowski with Spec Engineering. I am the project manager on the project. We are the design builder, so we're the engineers as well as the general contractor for the project. So tonight we have 2 renderings. I'm not sure if you have the interior plan as well. Was that submitted as part of this package?
The interior
layout?
floor layout, that would have been submitted.
But from a rendering standpoint, you can see we've kind of tried to mimic, in some cases, this, a barn-like type structure to kind of
So
coincide
that's
with
what
the
you're
area.
looking at, right?
Yep, so this would be coming along Main Street towards the existing facility. Kind of see we have it over here. And I believe this rendering actually has that driveway kind of in it. But, so it's, it's not that obvious from this picture.
No, it isn't, no.
In general, the building, like I said, the shape and the size is intended to kind of mimic the area around it. Not sure how much you want to get into tonight as far as what their use of the building is for. You can go over it a little bit if you'd like.
I think you went over that before.
Yeah, so-
How frequently it's used, and I guess I might add a question, how frequently is the loading dock used, and how often would people drive by and see trucks there? Because if I don't ask, someone else will.
Sure. I think we have that in the package, I believe. We did a,
Yeah, that
we
would have
did
been in
a,
the traffic memo, and, Kendra provided some data on that.
the intent here is they're not actually adding production. So the idea is we're shifting from the existing facility to the new, some of the more hazardous materials that they deal with, to get it in a better up-to-code facility. So the truck traffic is really not intended to increase. But again, right now, all the truck traffic is directed in the only driveway here. And they end up kind of staging on this driveway as well. So there's a little bit of an issue now. So what we're trying to do is bring it to the back of the building, We're trying to create a little area next to the 2 loading docks we have where we'll have an area stage. And the driveway portion that Stu has talked about adding is intended to kind of create a little bit of a less bottleneck of where the 2 buildings meet. So that's the thought process. As far as the facade of the building and the breaking up the structure, our architect is here tonight, we can talk a little bit about what that really wants to look like. I'm sure we could do a couple of things, and some, minor details whatnot to kind of make that look a little less boxy, I guess, but.
Just circling back to the trucks, Camden provided some data on employee traffic, UPS, FedEx, visitors, things like that. They show 6 delivery trucks and 4 shipments. So I'm assuming, Joe, that would mean 6 trucks delivering and 4 shipping product out? Yeah, so 10 trucks a day, give or take.
And the trucks that are here are not large chemical tanker trucks. I mean, these are box trucks with drums and pallets and whatnot, so everything's going in. There's smaller volumes per container, I guess.
I noticed a sign on the upper right, front of the facade there. Just make sure that complies with the sign regulations of town, that's all.
Thank you.
Can I hand out a paper copy of the
Sure, please.
this is just the, and this is just conceptual level. At this point, it's just that driveway across the front of the building, and we kind of drawn this up initially as a one-way, but I think what we would do is look to actually make it two-way, to allow an exit from any trucks that are backed into the existing building as well, and just kind of facilitate that movement. Betsy, do you want one to?
Yeah.
Well,
So,
making it two-way, you may have to make it wider, right?
yeah, it's 22 feet now, so we would need to just make it a little bit wider. But yeah, I mean, we would want to obviously accommodate, if there were 2 vehicles crossing, we'd need to make sure that, we were able to make it big enough to accommodate that.
If that were an issue, we could keep it the same size and just kind of direct it. I mean, there's not a lot of traffic.
The point I was just thinking about was the landscaping issue that we touched on earlier. It's a compromise that you're going to have to make one way or the other. I'm not discouraging you from doing it, I'm just making it two-way. I'm just pointing out that you're going to,
Yeah, and that was my initial thought too when we talked about putting the driveway back in. I said, what are we going to do with the landscaping and the berm? So
Increases your
that's why I think
challenge.
shifting it to the east side of the main driveway there probably makes the most sense.
Did you have a chance to look at, as far as I know the roof drains are going in, separating them out, or are you going to
So
look at that, whether or not to take them out or not?
we did look at that, but and I tried to call Phil today
Okay.
to discuss with him. But I think what we may look to do is to try and keep that rain garden in the back. And I know that his concern with not splitting up the roof drainage was running through the sediment forebay and churning up any accumulated sediment in there. So I think what and I'll talk to Phil about this and get his buy-in. But I think what we may try to do, collect the roof runoff separately, just bypass the sediment forebay and just run it right out into the rain garden. I think that would accomplish essentially the same result. So I'll run that by him and we'll modify things as needed from there.
Is it a metal roof? Metal roof or not? Yeah, okay.
okay, on this drawing, any questions from the board?
Yeah, I was just trying to remember. I think the walk-off of the back of a truck is almost at ground level, so the truck drops a little bit. Am I remembering correct?
No, the loading dock would be 4 feet above.
4 feet above.
Yeah, so
Above ground level.
the doors would open and the building here will be 4 feet above the concrete pad that'll be here. So when the truck's back in,
Yeah.
they'll open the door and they'll be level with the
Okay,
building.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Is
I just said it
does
incorrectly.
that mean the truck is nosing down, or tailing down?
Yeah, yeah, but it's not much. That concrete pad, I think, slopes only about 1 or 2%. It's give or take flat. Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
Where's the existing loading dock? On the existing building?
Existing loading dock is right here.
And
Okay.
the one we're worried about conflicting with.
Yeah, so basically, we've done the auto turn, and we can accommodate a truck at the existing facility and one truck at the new facility, but if a second truck arrived at the new facility while there was those two trucks already in place, it would be a challenge to get that third truck into the new building. So, but I think,
How often does that happen? Sounds pretty rare.
Right now, I can't.
how long do the trucks typically stay there when they're?
They're not long. You're looking at 20 minutes. Typically, they're quick offloads.
Okay, so about 20 minutes.
With the driveway, we can't accommodate.
Right.
Part of the-
Okay.
End of the day where it's most busy, you know, that you're looking at, that you have the potential of that, and we're trying to make sure we get the traffic off the road,
Yep,
which is part of putting in that area, so that way
yep,
we make it a safer area.
right. Rich, you have any questions?
I was going to say, use the mic.
I
I don't know. No, so I think we talked about the roof runoff. We talked about the two permits. I think overall it was in pretty good shape relative to the initial peer review comments.
The snow storage looks a little small, and if it's meant for the parking lot, maybe with an inch of snow, it might be. And I don't know if it's just, are there other areas as well? You got two little ellipses in the front.
Yeah, there's definitely other areas.
Okay.
So we
you
try not to
pull it
we try not to
inside.
litter the whole
Okay.
plan with those ovals, but yes, we can add more if
Okay.
if that helps.
And it's realistic where they are.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
You got feedback from the conservation agent as well here?
Yes, yeah, and we're aware that we need to file with them. She attended the meeting last week with the peer reviewer and gave some comments that she had as well. Obviously, there's a lot of constraints on the site with the slope and with the river and the setbacks, and we will be in the river. We will be in the riverfront setback. She's aware of that, and yeah, we will. Once we collect any additional comments from you, we'll strategize on timing to file with conservation.
Okay,
The other comment that we did talk, did you evaluate whether it made sense to shift the site, to the what?
Yeah, you mentioned
east?
20 to 30 feet to the east.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's further into that slope. That kind of presents other challenges. I think we'd need to lose a row of the parking in order to do that. So we need to figure out where to put the parking at that point. Obviously, a trip to ZBA to get their sign off. But I think it would be pretty significantly more in terms of site costs, just due to this mound, this knob up here. I know there's a lot of ledge. There was an exploration done up here a number of years ago. I don't recall how far back that was, but there is ledge further up here, so that would be obviously more of a expense and possibly blasting and whatnot.
So what we did, just to fill the board, and what we talked about, so the district requires a 150-foot setback from the building off the residential district line. And so the question was, at the location to the west with the wetland resources, if it made sense from the site and it wasn't to shift it a little bit, it would require a variance. So if it didn't really make a lot of sense, then maybe not explore it. But if it made better sense to try to support a variance, if the neighbor next door is the neighbor here? You're the neighbor, right? Okay. So provided that was okay to them because they sold the property to them, and if it all made sense. But if not, then just an effort to minimize the impact on the resource area. That was the question about it. So, but
it would seem to me that issue will come up at the Conservation Commission, and you can walk out of that meeting with some understanding of whether this is acceptable or they really want you to exercise that option.
Sure.
yes, yeah. I just wanted to
Yeah, thanks.
provide some background.
Okay, anyone in the audience care to comment or ask a question? Yeah, just grab a mic from one of these gentlemen.
There's one right here. I think the light's already on.
Hi, my name is Steve O'Toole. I'm here with Nancy Longobardi, who was the immediate abutter to Camger and has been for 40 years of their operation. And the Iannuzzi family and the Longobardi family have had a famous relationship over the past 40 years with, with two diversely different operations going on, horses and more agricultural on one side and Dan's operation on the other side. But over the years, we've worked together on many things, and it's been a great relationship, and we're really looking forward to their new building and everything that it provides, and as far as, being there and seeing it firsthand, and listening to the presentation tonight, and the description of the trucks coming in and out, and how much more that would be easier for them with this operation. So we look forward to their expansion, and we support it wholeheartedly.
Well, it's good to hear the neighbors are happy with the deal. That is not always the case. Something I was going to say, now it's gone. Comes with the territory, I guess. Okay, I think then the next step is for you to finish up the peer review comments and have another iteration with Beta and Phil, and we'll see you at the next meeting or the meeting after that, depending on when you fellas are ready for another round.
I think it should be the next meeting. I don't think the changes aren't.
All right?
So what we'd like to do in between, if we can, is try to get this over to the design review board
Yep.
for comments, too.
Yep.
So I think we have a complete set of information.
Is that just related to the building, or is that the site overall as well?
Oh, they look at the site, landscape and so forth, yeah.
They will likely tell you that you need to break up the parking lot a little bit with some planting areas. too.
So maybe we can
And I think
coordinate that to get that.
you had a comment about the front of the building and wanting to break up that design as well. Right?
You don't like the pole barn?
I like the barn aesthetic, I just think it's a big facade, so, especially next to that building that has nooks and crannies and details and things like that, so.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen, and we'll see
Thank
you at the next meeting.
We need to sign a time.
Yeah, so we need to continue this?
Continue it, yes.
All right, need a motion to continue this until March 10th at
7.
No, we already have,
Have a 7.
7:45.
at 7:45.
Oh, boy, it's a busy
So moved.
meeting.
Yeah. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, now we'll see you March 10th, 7:45. All right, our next item of business is 7 Phillips Way / 19 Shire Drive. We have a request for continuance to March 10th at 7:30. We need a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
One thing, Rich, hit me here on terms of 7 Phillips. We just finished talking to some folks about 5 Phillips, right?
yes,
Do they know that it's changed to Shire Drive?
yes.
They do? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay.
He's actually the one that approached us
It was
about
kind of the,
It wasn't this fellow, it was the other?
no, the other one, 5. was the
Gotcha, all
one.
right,
Yeah.
good.
Lincoln Road?
So 15 Lincoln Road?
Yeah, that's next, right, 15 Lincoln? Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
15 Lincoln Road, Stormwater Management Permit and Site Plan Review for Large-Scale Ground-Mounted Solar Array, continued from January 14th. Gentlemen,
How do you do, guys? Can you hear me?
well...
It's for the
we can
folks
hear-
at
that's
home.
for
Yeah, this is for
Yeah,
home, yeah.
right.
So again, my name is Daniel Serber. I'm the Director of Development with Next Grid. We are presenting to you again, I think this is the 3rd or 4th time we've been here. 1 megawatt ground mount solar system located at 15 Lincoln. This is on, do you want me to go through the whole backstory, or?
You go through what you think you need to present, and we'll handle it from there.
So again, this site is, has a lot of environmental issues. It was used as a car dumping facility for many years. There is definitely piles of garbage and other chemicals that are currently seeping into the ground. part of what we're doing is going to be to clean up that entire site. We plan on doing that, and so we've gone through our peer review. Brian here is going to go through the changes that we've made to follow up with that, the beta group review. And I think you'll see that we've accomplished everything they've asked us to do. And I think tonight we'd like to ask for a conditional approval.
Before the gentleman gets up to, just the environmental issue, you need to file with the DEP, is that correct?
Yes, sir. This already has an open case with the DEP. This has a no payment financial hardship condition placed on it by the current owner, so they were not able to afford to clean the site up. That's been going on since 2007.
Yeah.
When we take control of the site, we will begin a testing process that takes about 6 weeks. They're going to do over 20 test pits on the site to find out what chemicals have leached into the ground and how deep.
Yep.
And then they're going to deliver us a plan to remediate the site. That plan will be approved by the DEP. We'll go through all the cleanup work. Initial estimates are that it's going to cost a lot of money. $200,000 to $1 million is the estimate to clean everything up. That's one of the reasons we're so anxious to get this closed, because the payments that we receive from the Massachusetts SMART program are tied to these blocks. And every day we don't get this submitted to the SMART program, we risk losing a block, which is tens of thousands of dollars that's going to essentially be going to clean up this site. And if we get to a point where this isn't profitable anymore, obviously we cannot continue to do this. So time on this project is a lot more important than other projects. And so
Fundamentally, I think the board is supportive of what you're trying to do. We need to make sure that the i's are dotted, the t's are crossed,
Yeah.
and the peer review comments are reconciled, et cetera.
I do want to touch on one thing in the peer review before I hand it to Brian, and I suppose going on this line, is that there is a comment in the peer review that said they need more information on how we're going to conduct soil management during our required cleanup from the DEP. And it's kind of in contradiction to what I've been saying since my first appearance here, which is we don't know what we're going to have to clean up. So there could be chemicals in there that we're going to need to actually take out of the ground, put in trucks, and take all the way to Maine, because they're the only place you can dump certain chemicals that come from car batteries. If that doesn't exist, it could be other means of taking care of that soil. But it's really impossible for us to know before we do that testing, and we can't afford to do the testing until we get approval and get our smart block taken care of. So it's a.
But we don't want to be a catch-22 here, no.
Yeah. So yeah, Brian, you want to start going through?
So before, just pause one moment, just to clarify for the board. So that peer review comment that Daniel is speaking to was in the peer review report to the Conservation Commission. So Beta, the other side of Beta, is doing a peer review for the Conservation Commission, and the other, Phil Paradis, through the other part of Beta, is doing the peer review for the planning board. So what I've been communicating, trying back and forth with Beta, as we talked about, is allowing for a conditional approval so that they can proceed to the next step in the permitting process to get to DEP so we can get the property cleaned up. So you won't find it in your peer review report as you look through from Beta. That was in the one that went to the Conservation Commission, but wanted to make you aware of that particular.
Okay.
And what I did, what we have done, or at least in the one that we'll talk about later, is we've incorporated a condition to make sure that things correspond with each other. So conservation review, planning board, et cetera. So we could talk about that a little bit later, but go ahead, Brian.
Okay, please.
Hi, well, good evening. For the record, my name is Brian Yergation. I'm a professional engineer from BSC Group. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. We're seeking approval of this project. It's been a while since we were last before you, and I think it was back at the November meeting. And there have been a number of changes which we've made in concert with, based on the comments from Beta Group during their peer review. And we've actually had a follow-up peer review, and we've made addressed the outstanding issues that remained. And I believe at this point we've gone through all those, but I'd be happy to walk you through some of the more recent changes and comments that were left unaddressed or not addressed to their satisfaction after the first peer review. If we could go to the fourth slide, that would be excellent. Thank you. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to touch on, it was an 11-page letter, so I'm just going to touch on those issues which were not deemed satisfactorily addressed. The existing FEMA maps show the 100-year floodplain elevation at elevation 123. However, the town's bylaw has a more specific requirement, and they actually list it at elevation 124 for this project, for this site. So we've made that adjustment. It doesn't actually even come onto the site, so it has really no bearing on the project. There was a question as to the location of the inverter pads, and it came up relative to some questions about sound. And so those are located. There's an equipment pad here on the side of the proposed access road, as well as one back here at the terminus of the road. There was some questions about, wanted to see what the specific seed mixture was going to be. This entire site, all the disturbed areas are going to be seeded following construction. And we had previously proposed sweet savanna mixture, but since that time we've changed it to New England Conservation Wildlife Mix, and I've included the seed mixture specifications in our packet. Some questions as to the shade limits. They were asked to be shown, and while there really isn't a ton of vegetation, there is a little bit of vegetation that will provide very minimal amounts of shade. The western portion of the site, as well as a very little bit on the eastern side, and they're shown actually on the prior sheet. But what I can tell you is that there will be no impact on the solar panels on the eastern side, but on the western side of the site, the shade limits will impact a little bit of the arrays that are out there. So then if we start looking under the stormwater management permit review comments, there were some technical questions, some calculations that Beta Group had requested, sizing of some of these riprap swales that we have proposed through here, one back here which is actually going to collect all the runoff and route it to this proposed subsurface system. So we've provided all those calculations in our packet as well. They wanted to see a detail of the spacing of the array, and so that those are shown on the following sheet. It's sheet 5. Shows the spacings. There is in addition to the each of the solar panels will have little around the frame of it. There are small little pinholes for drainage. In addition to that, there is a little bit of spacing between each of the panels, and there's a gap of about 1 foot between the racks. And the racks contain 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, like 18 panels per rack. There's a gap of about 1 foot between those. So the whole point of that, the comment was made relative to concerns for concentration of stormwater runoff. DEP has actually weighed in on these types of developments as well, and so we don't have any concerns with that.
What's the acreage of that piece of property?
Just shy of 5 point, yeah, just shy of 6.
Just shy of 6, okay. Yeah.
It's 5.8.
Portion of the 60s.
Again, there was some additional questions about what type of, how the racks of the solar panels will be mounted to the ground. And there was some concerns because we were proposing a concrete ballast block solution. And we were initially, and honestly, that's still subject to change. We had proposed that because it was the least really intrusive on the ground and not knowing the extents and nature of the contamination. So as part of that, because that actually introduced a lot more impervious cover onto the ground, if there were some, versus just driving something in with a helical pile into the ground.
Yep.
So we actually revised our stormwater hydrocad model to account for about 6,000 square feet of concrete blocks, if in fact we go that route. So we've designed the system accordingly. It can handle all of that. I guess probably the biggest change, or one of the more significant changes, and if you wouldn't mind jumping ahead to the last slide, was, thank you, yep. So we have a riprap, a stone line swale at the very northern edge that's going to capture all the stormwater runoff that's flowing overland. And what we've done is we have a shallow 1 foot deep riprap lined swale, and underneath that swale there's going to be another stone trench filled with filled with crushed stone, and there'll be an under drain pipe in there which is going to convey that's going to convey the stormwater. There'll be that runs the entire length of the swale, and there'll be 5 different locations where there'll be a yard drain as well, and that's going to convey each of the flow to the subsurface system in 5 different locations. The yard drain is really just there as an extra added measure. In case something were to happen and the system were to get inundated, the water would flow on the surface into it, and it would go to the subsurface system that way. So a lot of our attention with the last round of revisions was focused on some of the technical aspects of the drainage calculations.
That's a perforated pipe you referred to.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a 12-inch perforated HDPE pipe. Yep. And actually, just so you know, our calculations show that we're not even, during the 100-year storm, flow won't even get up into the swale. It's a shallow swale. It's only about 1 foot deep, but we have that added measure of insurance there too. So.
Any maintenance required for the 12-inch pipe underneath?
No, not for the pipe itself.
Okay.
Routine. There is a maintenance plan which we have introduced into the record, and inlets and things like that should always be checked, as well as the swale, just to make sure that there's no debris or anything which is clogging. Any of the they are dome shaped, which helps prevent leaves and so forth from accumulating on the grates. But yeah, that's something that would be part of the annual checks. That's essentially it. There were a few other technical things. There were a bunch of conditions which we've noted that the applicant does not have any objection to. There was one condition, though, which I would like to mention, because the condition required that we conduct a hydraulic conductivity testing at the time or prior to construction. And basically what that is it's to put it in layman terms, it's a glorified perk test, but what it does is it actually measures the ability of the ground to infiltrate water in a saturated condition. And the problem was, at the time when we did the test pits, there's a lot of buried junk in the ground, and the excavation was pretty difficult. So that's when we had met with Beta Group, we proposed, I explained that to him, and I said, if you'd be okay with it, we'd be happy to do that prior to construction and after, the site remediation has occurred, and I think he was okay with that.
Yeah.
But I bring that point up because my calculations are very conservative, and it has resulted in, we've used a very low exfiltration rate for water into the soil. And because of that, our subsurface system is huge.
Yeah, large.
So what we would like is to reserve the ability to reduce the size of that system based on the results of the testing that we do. And obviously, we would run that by, by Phil or Beta Group to get his review and blessing on that. But
Yeah, understood, yeah.
that's it. All the other proposed conditions, as we mentioned, we had no objection
Right.
to. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, let's see, the only only point I would make is that, and you're well aware of it, is that you've responded to Beta. They will take a look at what you've responded to and say, oh, yes, okay, but there's still 3 things or whatever. And once we close that gap, I think we're comfortable from a technical point of view that what you're proposing is adequate.
Sure, absolutely. And one other thing I should point out, and I think Daniel had mentioned earlier one of the comments that came up. We just yesterday, I got a copy of the review that was done by Beta Group as far as for the notice of intent, and I had Richard had tipped me off to one of the comments about a week prior, and so I was actually able to incorporate that into the revised plans here. So it's been a very fluid project and process. So yeah, there's been a lot of back and forth, and we're very willing to jump in and respond to all those concerns.
All right, questions from the board?
Just looking for you to improve my knowledge a little bit more. When you touch a 16-acre lot that has contamination on it, are you responsible for cleanup of the entire lot, the entire parcel, or just the, what did I say, 60? It's a 16-acre lot, right?
It's a 6-acre lot.
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
the,
it's a
then
pretty
it's-
small parcel. But so
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you
It's a
assume
16.
control, right now we have a purchase option on the land, and as soon as we assume control of the land, we have a certain amount of time that we do need to clean that site up.
The entire
completely.
site?
The entire site, or we cannot occupy it.
Is there only one level of clean? There's not residential clean and
There is-
commercial
no,
clean
there
and
is-
industrial clean?
There is, you can clean it to a deed restriction where, or to a level where you'd have to put a deed restriction that says
Can't have
no
residential.
residential can be on
Okay.
site. But, this is going to be taking into account its proximity to the river, and, the cleanup is going to be extensive, so.
So the intent is residential clean?
It just
Maybe.
matters what the DEP
Yeah, okay.
demands of us, yeah.
Chad?
I think Walter had set it up correctly, is that, I think as long as you close that gap with Beta, I think we're in good shape.
Aaron?
I find it odd that there's no residents here, given our next topic of conversation.
Yeah.
Do we know if, it's right next to a...
I've hand-delivered letters to every single one of these residents.
We have.
I did, and we did receive one response from a neighbor. They wanted me to look at their fence line. It's pretty messed up, and they've been reluctant to fix their fence, and so we've offered to go ahead and do wood fence repairs for the back neighbors, and they understand the environmental condition here, and they're set up so high over the lot. They just look right over it. They all call it the pond, and they don't have any problem with the solar being there. They say it's better than their kids or dogs getting in an old junkyard. So it sounds like there's pretty good neighbor consensus on this.
And you're going to put up a 6-foot fence, right?
We are going to put up a 6-foot fence.
Chain link?
Chain link.
Chain link.
Yep.
And then, but they're going to have their existing backwood fences repaired.
Yep. No, that's good.
And what Daniel had agreed, when we were going back and forth, is So that fence will be at flush with the ground. And then so nothing can get under the fence there, but then the other sides to the river will be raised up a little bit for
Critters.
wildlife flowing back and
Critters,
forth,
yeah.
yeah.
Concerned about the neighborhood pets and possibly even children. A child really can't get under 6 inches with the human hedge, but dogs can pretty easily, so they wanted it flush with the ground to prevent any
And
animals.
where's that fence that you're going to repair for the neighbor?
Of the repaired fence.
I mean, is there an aerial, the satellite image?
Not
Not in the plan set.
You have the interconnection?
Well, I can.
Well, I mean,
Just do the street
there's
address?
only 1, 2, 3 neighbors that have back fences.
Yep.
And it's, I can't see the name, but I believe it's this woman here.
Yep.
6 Daisy or, we have the letter. Yeah.
It's the Weavers, the McCarthys, or the Hamlets.
The Weavers.
The McCarthy's.
That's the 6 Daisy Drive.
Yes.
No relation.
Now I see what's going
That's the
on.
one.
No relation.
It's this parcel right here.
Yep, okay, understood, thank you.
And so that fence there, abutting those 3 neighbors would be flush? That's what you're saying?
The chain link fence.
The chain
would
link.
be-
So the chain link fence on this eastern side, we're
Mhm.
proposing that would be flush with the ground.
Okay.
Everywhere else would
Be
would have
raised.
the 6-inch wildlife. Yeah. That's
Gotcha.
typical. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, anyone in the audience care to comment or question? All
So
right, Rich, what's our next step?
do you feel not comfortable to close it and render a decision subject to the following conditions being met, or you want to keep it open and,
Well, the
that's what they're asking, although they seem to be bashful, I don't know what he's doing.
No, we really would like to close the public hearing, conditional approval tonight.
conditioned on closing with Beta and conditioned on closing with conservation, presumably.
Correct, yeah.
Those two things are open.
That's fine.
Aaron, you all right?
I'm good.
Yep.
All right, so let's have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, we've closed the public hearing. We'll work on a draft decision with those two contingencies.
Great.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with the cleanup.
Yes.
Yeah,
Don't envy you there.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll come back and present. I'll give you the tonnage of garbage that we take out of there.
Oh,
And
man.
There's a pile of steel framed.
You ever have to strip topsoil?
What's that?
Has that ever occurred that you have to strip topsoil right out of the site?
Well, we've never dealt with this level of car garbage before, so we're not
Okay.
positive.
if you find any 32 Fords buried there, let me know.
There's quite a bit buried there.
All right, next order of business is 41 Meetinghouse Road Stormwater Management Permit and site plan review for ground-mounted solar array.
Okay. It's me again. So this is our 4th or 5th time on this project? Yeah, so this is a roughly just under 200 megawatt or kilowatt AC project.
Microphone, please.
Two,
Thank you. At 41 Meetinghouse, adjacent to the condo community. The condo association is the owner of the land, which we're developing. The parcel is set a few hundred feet back from all residential abutters. We've been through this quite a few times, so I think I'm just going to let Nathan go through the few changes, and then we can address some abutter concerns and conditions.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Nathan Collins, principal owner of CLC Design. The revised plans that we're presenting to you tonight, again, working extensively kind of on a back and forth with Beta Group, associated more so with stormwater. Test pits were performed on December 10th. The test pits that were done, we analyzed or documented the soil conditions that were there, depth of groundwater. We also did some percolation tests to get a general sense of infiltration rates. Based on the town's bylaws, you require falling head in situ testing, or you can use what's called the Rawls rates, which are documented rates based on soil conditions. The rates that we provided were 4 minutes an inch and less than 2 minutes an inch in the 2 test pits, and the material was documented as sand. However, the revised stormwater report, again, working with Beta Group, we used a conservative infiltration rate of 2.41 inches an hour. The result of that is, as you can see, in kind of the limits, this is the site plan, shows the grading plan. The limits of the pond now are much larger. However, the depth of the pond is just a little over a foot deep. So the bottom elevation, off the top of my head, is 255.75, and the top berm is 257. So there's no actual, it all just relies on infiltration back into the soil. There's no pipes or drainage structures that need to be maintained within that basin. It's all just sheet flow to that area, and then there is an emergency overflow where about a few inches above the 100-year flood elevation. So,
At the 100-year flood elevation, you've got only a few inches of freeboard left?
no, the revised plan has a foot of freeboard
Foot of
from
freeboard, okay.
the top elevation. Yeah, we're working with Phil. There is, one of the modifications was your bylaw has a 15-foot border around. We have narrowed that down to 5 feet. Beta Group seemed to say that that was something that had been done in the past and there was precedent. He didn't seem to have any
Describe the
issues
5
with that.
feet.
So basically, you have your bottom of pond elevation, and then there's a berm around.
Yeah.
So it comes up about 1.5 feet.
Yeah.
There's a 5-foot berm to access that for maintenance, and then just slopes back down to
Okay,
natural grade.
yeah, 5-foot wide berm.
5 foot wide.
That's
yes.
what you
I'm
meant,
sorry,
okay.
Not 5 foot in height.
Yeah, that's, okay.
And again, the entire area is going to be enclosed in a 6-foot-high chain link fence. We also have a 6-inch reveal on the bottom for access for critters. This project has been submitted to Natural Heritage and is under review.
Yep.
We have not received a letter back from them yet, and we're also going in front of the Norfolk Conservation Commission actually tomorrow night.
One of the requirements that the fire department placed on you was to have an access around the periphery.
Correct.
Still have that?
15 feet, yes. So you have access around all of the panels themselves, 15 feet from the side of the panels to the fence line.
Okay, yep.
And again, we've maintained the closest point in terms of clearing is 50 feet from the abutting residential property line.
Yep.
In this district, the town's bylaws require what's called a green belt for any project that has a structure within 100 feet. Although we don't have a structure within 100 feet of the residential property, we are maintaining a 50-foot no clear, which is 20 feet further than the 30-foot minimum requirement that the town's bylaws ask for as it relates to vegetation. In addition, there is language within your bylaw that talks about if there is adequate pre-existing vegetation that provides screening, the board may grant a waiver from that requirement. So it's a situation where we're not necessarily requesting a waiver because we're not within 100 feet, but we do understand the sensitivity as it relates to vegetative screening.
The trees in that area along the back section of all those residences, Are they deciduous or are they evergreen?
It's a combination of both, deciduous and evergreen. I would say majority are deciduous.
Well, Rich and I had looked at this and talked about possibly planting some evergreens within that 50-foot no-cut area that might
Right.
add to the visual barrier, if you will.
We did receive those conditions. All of them, I don't necessarily want to speak for the applicant, but we're in agreement with outside of that particular one regarding the buffer. We did send an email to the town just kind of with some requested revised language of that. I'd be more than happy to read what we're proposing, but that was really the only condition that we had
When did we get that letter?
objection to.
Did we get that letter?
They sent it to me, I haven't forwarded it to you.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm like, I don't remember reading that.
I think you better read it since
Okay, so-
Rich is sitting on it.
We were just requesting that buffer, that condition be reworded to state, prior to an occupancy permit, a site walk will be done by a planning board member and the town planner to determine the adequacy of the existing vegetated cover and whether or not additional vegetative buffer for neighbors on Union Street is required. If determined to be required, evergreen shall be added along the limits of the east fence line as required to provide additional screening. An evergreen variety shall be chosen that is resistant to deer.
That's your proposal, right?
Correct, yeah. It's,
Okay, well, we've got to chew on that a little bit. Okay, keep going.
that really concludes my presentation in terms of changes that have been made. So again, at this point, we, outside of that one condition, we'd be happy to kind of discuss in more detail.
We don't want any abutters to be looking at this thing, see it, and be mad the rest of their lives. So we do want to do that. We just really don't think that the angle of these panels are going to be particularly visible. So we think
No.
this fair plan is needed.
Yep.
But
We have a.
Yeah, so they have seen the draft
They've
decision,
begun-
which the board has.
Yeah,
And condition 4 is very similar to what you just read, with the exception, this one presumes the plants are already on the plan shown, and then a site walk will be done to see if it's adequate, so.
we do have a fundamental problem with how the condition is written. Even if you guys didn't want to change it to what we said, it says trees will be planted along the entire property line, which is very, very unnecessary. So at minimum, we'd like it to just be changed to along the fence line instead of property line.
along the what?
Fence line instead of property line.
Okay, so along the
Solar
fence
panel
line,
fence
it
line.
would mean what? Show us what
So
we,
right now, the regulation reads, or the condition states the eastern
Yes, yes,
property line, which is this whole
Right.
length,
and your proposal would be
the eastern fence line. if
the
you will.
fence line, I see, okay, on the outside of the fence line.
Correct.
Well, that makes sense.
That makes
That
sense.
makes
yeah.
That was more the intent, so, good catch,
Understood.
yeah.
It makes sense.
That makes a
yeah.
lot of sense.
Yeah, okay. Understood.
Regarding the fire department, I think this came up last time. Is the turning radius appropriate there for that little service road coming off of it's like in between the gazebo and something else?
Here?
Yeah.
So it's deceiving when you look at the plan, but that gravel drive is proposed as 16 feet wide.
Okay.
So the turning radius is more adequate than it appears just looking at it.
And it would be, my understanding, a small vehicle, not a
Correct.
full,
Yes, and typical off-road, terrain type.
Right.
um,
right,
Fire
okay.
emergency vehicle.
It does look very deceiving in the plan view.
Yeah. Understood.
Like, okay.
Yeah, that driveway change was made kind of.
It was, I think it was like 2 meetings ago.
Right.
Okay, any other questions on the members of the board? Rich, anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think we addressed all the other points in the draft decision. It was really the screening to the vegetative screening.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll open it up to the audience.
Thank you. I don't really have any questions. The letter that I sent to Betsy today, I'm Barbara Carter, 36 Union Street. Today I crafted just a couple of page letter that really summarizes my concerns, my comments about this project. Passed it along to Betsy and included some photos of the view that I have that you can see through the trees up the hill at different parts of my property, including my home. So really all I have to add. I mean, I realize where this is going and I understand it, but
show you the.
I don't know whether it makes sense for me to read the letter. It basically is a summary of what I've already said for the past 3 times.
Well, we've tried to understand that, and the planting of additional evergreens is the board's attempt to
I like it.
provide an additional visual barrier for
Yep.
you.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Whoa.
Oop, it's back.
Yeah. And even though, the solar grid is not orange, and so that was, first of all, thank you for preparing that. That was excellent. The solar grid is not orange; it is black, and it's a black chain link fence. So that should even, and by adding, I think this evergreen buffer should help mitigate anything unsightly.
I understand that, and I realize, of course, that it's not orange. It's really the only way that I could take a look and see, well, what might I see? What might I see? So that's why I selected a color that would obviously you'd be able to see it, and just really to prove my point that there's some sparse parts of that forested area where I will likely see something. And as I said in my letter, I don't think I'm going to see a big, wide swath of either a chain link fence or an array of solar panels. But I think even so, I will see something, and that disappoints me. But I do agree. I think that the evergreen plantings will make a difference, and I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. Okay, Rich, so
So I guess the only clarification point was what Nathan had read versus
Right.
having planting shown and then do a site inspection.
Yes.
So
His proposed was let's wait and see.
no, I don't like that.
And the way this is, and also the way this is drafted, I feel, I think, it's my understanding, we all need to revise it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's showing the whole property line,
Yeah,
and that's
no.
not appropriate either.
Right,
That's
correct, yeah.
Um,
No, the intent would be to revise it so it goes along the fence line, not the entire property line. But this one is written to have, there'll be plantings on the plan, planted, okay, and then do a white site walk to see if supplemental plantings would be needed. That's this potential, yes.
Yeah, that's the way that language is the way I'd prefer to go. So that means that you need to sit down and with Rich and describe where the trees would go and pick the species so that we know what that is.
You say it'll be deer-resistant arborvitae or Leland cypress.
Well, arborvitae's,
There's deer-resistant giant arborvitaes or deer-resistant.
yeah, but they're not very snow-resistant.
Leland cypress are typical screening.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would
that's-
work.
That's
That would work.
better, yeah.
Yeah, those are.
Right.
Okay, all right. We understand, thank you for your presentation. We have the draft, we'll finish this up.
What do you want to vote on and just?
We can vote it up conditionally on the change in language there. Is there anything else, Rich, that needs to be changed or revised per the draft that we've got in front of us?
No, that was the only one that was,
Well, the front page says 45 Meetinghouse. Should it
Yeah,
not be
so-
41? Or,
it's technically, it should be 45.
Okay.
Because the resident who lives at 41 called me and said that,
Putting a solar array on my front,
yeah.
yeah,
I said,
right.
no, that was a,
Okay.
yeah, so it actually is 45, yeah. So-
Okay.
So we'll make sure everything's
Good
reflected.
to know. Okay.
You probably didn't know that, but it's not really 41, the address for this. It's lot 41, but the street address is 45.
Yeah,
so-
it was the address that I think the original lease was, or talked about with the owner. But I understand
Yeah,
the property
right.
is actually 45.
The mailing address is.
Yeah, because,
40, yeah.
like I said, the
All right, so we need a motion to conditionally approve the draft decision for a site plan application for 45 Meetinghouse Road solar array. By the way, just an aside, the difference between large solar array and small solar array is 250, right? You're 249.66, as I understand it. So I don't know who you're kidding, but it's a large solar array. At least that's the way we're treating it. For example, there's a little sign that's required that says who owns it and was a 24-hour emergency telephone number. That's only required in the large ones. We want it on this one,
Yeah,
as an example. I mean, it's only 2 or 3 small things like that.
we understand that. We've done
Okay.
these 250s. They usually go by all the normal site plan review rules, but generally we wouldn't have to go to special permit after site plan review. So this is a bit of a special,
Right.
special town in that regard.
correct.
Okay, so do we have a motion to,
So moved.
do we have
What
a
do you need
second?
us to?
To conditionally approve the draft decision for site plan application for 45 Meetinghouse Road solar array,
With
with condition
with the condition.
that we revise the language of miscellaneous condition number 4.
Right.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's a vote.
Thank you.
We'll clean up this, and you'll have it shortly from...
Did you close it? Did you
Pardon?
close the hearing? You didn't close the hearing?
No, but we can.
Yeah, close the hearing, please.
All right, we need a motion to close the public hearing on 45...
41. Yeah.
41.
I think
Meetinghouse.
it was open on 41, so we need to close it
Oh, I
on
see what you're
41.
saying.
Close it at 41, okay.
Right.
41 Meetinghouse Road.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we've closed the meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, rolling along this.
Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
keep it going, right?
There's nothing
was that
open with
momentum?
Beta on these guys?
No, that was,
Looked
Okay.
good.
what was kind of open was what we conditioned, the decommissioning plan,
Yep,
the sign.
yep,
So we've covered the
okay.
outstanding
All
items.
right. Next order of business is 65 Myrtle Street. State lot special permit vote for a 2-year extension to 4/26/22. You're going to speak to that, I presume?
Yeah, if you recall, it was 2 Form A lots, which was the former property of Mrs. Cleary, correct? Right, Mrs. Cleary? Yeah, okay, good. Get my history right.
Yep.
So they have the 2 Form A lots, the homes are under construction, I think they're marketing them. The third lot, which is the estate lot, was the one that the conservation restriction was placed on that one from the planning board to the rear of the lot, so he actually needs more time to be able to get that done, because the conservation restriction takes a little bit, because it's got to go through the town, the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, so
Yep.
it's reasonable to,
Yep.
so,
All right, so, any questions? Well, all right, then
Is
we need a...
2-year extension normal? Is that what
We
you...
usually give him 1. Why does he want 2?
2 is in the,
We changed our bylaws
Okay.
fairly recently,
yeah,
so that special permits are now good for 2 years.
Mhm.
not all of them, this one is one.
This one is still
Okay.
has
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we need a motion to extend the estate lot special permit to 42622 465 Myrtle Street, lot number 3.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 It's the right word.
Aye?
No. He said aye, aye, aye. He said nay, actually, but
You said nay?
He did.
what he did,
Wow.
contrary, just contrary, that's all.
Like when they're not here.
He,
Oh.
in all honesty, he asked.
So that, I guess I would put that nay on myself. I didn't think you needed to be here, so, but
Brook Street,
Okay. So you did ask.
He did.
he did ask, yeah.
Alright.
vote to recommend
But-
acceptance.
In the future,
Aaron wants him here.
they want some here,
It-
we'll make sure.
It's not a small ask. 2-year extension.
No, it isn't, I
For
understand.
special consideration.
Yeah.
Well, in the future, we will tell them to come in.
Yeah, that, I think that's common courtesy. All right, next one is Nichols Way, street acceptance. Vote to recommend acceptance of, at the May 2020 annual town meeting. Talk to us.
So Nichols Way was, we just missed the, as we were doing road acceptances in the fall, we got the plans in. It's kind of close to the time when we were teed up to go for the other road acceptances, but it was past it, so we told Mr. DePlasto that we would, it's off of Holbrook Street. It's what, nine lots?
Yep, and I will actually flip.
We'll show you the plan.
Yeah,
but,
please. Okay, and it's completed?
It's complete.
Yeah,
So it's ready to be accepted, to start the process
yeah.
for the road being
Accepted as a town
accepted as
meeting.
a public way.
Right,
So he submitted his request in writing to the selectmen, which will start, they'll refer back to the planning board for recommendation,
Yep.
DPW, but just giving you a heads up
sure, okay.
Okay.
that it's in the queue.
So do we need to vote to recommend acceptance, right?
Not tonight, you don't. It's
Not
just more
tonight?
for information purposes tonight.
Yeah, okay, very good.
Yeah.
All right, meeting minutes of the
Last meeting.
January, 14th.
Yes, I move to accept the meeting minutes for the planning board meeting on January 14th, 2020.
There was a couple of corrections.
With a couple of corrections.
They've
Yeah, I
been
kinda-
made.
Was that I changed the date, that date of the next meeting, I think.
Meeting schedule, yep,
And then I had found a couple of spelling errors.
yes.
But wasn't there one also, it says town planner updates, blah, blah, result, decide to hold off the proposal B1 zoning amendments until the May town meeting, I mean, really the fall town meeting, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
And at least the copy I had said May, I don't know,
yeah.
I'll make that correction.
okay,
So,
That's correct.
as amended.
as amended, right.
So moved.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 You're off the hook, Gary. All right, now,
You're always on the hook.
let's see, annual report. Betsy, thank goodness, has taken the responsibility to put a draft in front of us, which looks pretty good, but open to comments and critiques from the board.
Doesn't sound like we did much. I thought
Well,
we did more than this.
I wasn't here the full year, so I mean, some of these things I just have to defer and, defer to Betsy. and the rest of the board, because I wasn't here for the first half of the year.
It's a very busy year.
What's strikes me as what's absent here is the work we did working with the B1 committee on the proposed zoning, which didn't go forward, but nevertheless, we put some time into that.
Yeah. Did?
So maybe another sentence that would incorporate that.
Yeah.
It didn't hit me till just now, but I mean, I remember that contentious meeting we had here.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you also need to list the board members that retired last year?
That's a good idea.
Oh, yeah. That's
a good idea.
I mean, the two board members that are not here any.
Greg and Kevin?
Greg and Kevin?
Yep, good idea.
Yep.
Any other changes come to mind? Okay, Gary?
Is Beta the only group we ever use?
It's recently, yes. We used to use a fellow named Tom Houston some years ago,
Yeah, I don't remember that.
but we parted ways with Tom.
Okay.
All right, so we need to vote to accept this as amended this evening, right?
yes.
So we need a motion to accept this as amended, accept the 2019 Norfolk Planning Board Annual Report as amended this evening.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. All
Chairman,
right.
question, can we revisit the meeting notes, or is it too late?
No, we can revisit. What's up?
I think I need to amend my comments on the 201 Main Street presentation.
Page 5.
Page which?
Page 5.
Page 5. Okay.
You're the last paragraph?
Assume I use the word good, but that's fine, I'm not gonna, I think I would like to add a sentence about how I thought it was unfortunate that the developer presented a development that included no affordable housing.
Yes, I remember you talking about missed opportunity.
If you don't mind, Betsy.
Somewhere around after, like, the missed opportunity.
Around there, yep.
Low density on the site, this is a missed opportunity for the town, and either the proponent of the proposed zoning changes will allow higher density. He said that it is also unfortunate that the developer has chosen to propose no affordable housing in this.
Because I do remember you making a comment about you are just under the limit.
Well, he's taken a large site and broken it up into 3 individual
Right.
sites,
Right, to avoid that. I do remember you making that comment.
so.
I thought it was for a number of reasons that he was breaking it up. I thought he was just...
I think we need to address it in the
Right.
future, and it should be on record from the original presentation, so.
I'll throw a sentence in there.
Yeah.
You guys are okay with that?
That's fine.
Thanks.
All right, where are we now? Annual report, we took care of the town planner updates. Update, town planner?
Just before the update, I just want to pop back up the Shire Drive, just as a FYI to the
Oh, did we
planning
walk
board.
by that? Yeah,
We
we did.
did.
We walked by that, I'm sorry. Yep.
That's all right. So, Shire Drive, I think Shire Industrial Park subdivision was planned and built many years ago, and the property was foreclosed on by the bank, and the lots that went through foreclosure were purchased by some of the businesses that are in the park, but the catch here, not catch, but So the town needs to step in and finish the road to do that. Walpole Cooperative Bank is holding $272,000 that I'll need to have the planning board vote. At the next meeting, we'll hold a hearing, send out notice to interested parties to pull the money and finish the road. So I just wanted to let you know that. I think it's been defunct for a while, so we need to move to, as the park has been starting to build out with newer businesses. If you go up there, it's a rough shape. So, the process. When I contacted Walpole Cooperative Bank, I had thought the town the planning board had voted several years ago to do this, but apparently that wasn't the case. So, we'll take care, initiate the process, and we'll have it on for the next meeting to.
I think you should show the board from where to where. that you're
Sure.
proposing.
Yeah.
Just at the top there.
So it starts here
Mm-hmm.
on Dedham Street, up by, goodness, the liquor store.
Provo Liquors.
Provo, there you go. Excuse me for a moment. Wraps around, comes up. Of course, now this is Shire Drive. It's not Phillips anymore. Comes, wraps around Sharon Ave and just turn the main. It's right here by the police station.
Mm-hmm.
So I do know, talking with DPW, they do have plans to redo Sharon Ave too, coming up. So actually, the timing probably would work quite well because they can do things.
Do we know if 272 is adequate to do the job?
That is what we'll find out.
Okay.
There's a good, probably may not be enough in that 272. We'll have to.
And then aren't there some issues down at the end with that temporary cul-de-sac that need to be addressed?
Yeah, I should. I'll go back. So one of the, actually, this would be a good one, Betsy, if you just drop down and put the aerial on, because it'll show the temporary. Yeah, that one should be good.
The Google, you want
Yeah, that
Google
one, yeah.
Satellite, or do
Yeah,
you
that's
want?
good. Yeah, Google Satellite. So if you see, that's the temporary cul-de-sac that's there right next to 5 Phillips Way. And so this site here is before the planning board for site plan approval. So it did propose to this applicant, because they're at the end, is to potentially modify this subdivision and extend the cul-de-sac to the end. And then we would abandon this cul-de-sac here, which was intended to be abandoned all along, and have it at the end here. So that's one potential option to handle this. The advantage potentially of this person, this property owner, is he would then gain frontage. So if you ever wanted to subdivide down the road that much larger parcel, by extending the layout down here, it would gain the ability to create some additional lots down the road. Because this cul-de-sac actually is temporary, and so the setback between the edge of the layout and this building is pretty close. It's actually, less than that's required under the zoning.
So if that were to be abandoned, it would be turned into a straight shot through?
Yeah, straight
and
shot.
And the sides would be cleaned up and returned to the owners,
Right,
property owners?
to the property owners. Now, if they're not amenable to doing that,
Who's or not, if the property
This
owners?
property owner.
Yeah.
Essentially extending the the
Yeah.
subdivision, then it gets a little bit trickier because this cul-de-sac is there as a temporary easement, and so we don't have the rights to, we have to discuss with the property owner to get property and.
Well, he's in front of us looking for approval, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And he'd be the one that would have to agree to this, right?
Yeah, for this change, yeah.
Yeah, so there's,
Where does the cul-de-sac, the new cul-de-sac you're proposing, whose property is that sitting on? 3 people or just one?
Just one.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess if you slide it a little bit, maybe. Just-
Is it the,
Rich, you're proposing that the town take this project on?
no,
We
the
have-
paving of the road?
Well, 2 pieces. We have to do the road because the subdivision went bankrupt. They were foreclosed on.
Right.
So, but part of getting this finished is this cul-de-sac. We need to come up with a
Solution.
solution. So we have to,
And we'd like to do that before we finish the road so that we can pave.
Solution to what?
finish in the subdivision.
So finish it the way it was originally approved, with the cul-de-sac there.
But it's only temporary.
It's only temporary. So if you, I don't know if you have that. Did you go into the
I
file?
don't understand why we would
Shire?
spend money.
You want the Shire?
Yeah.
I don't think we would. I think the property owner would have. 7.
Let Shire Drive take a collection and fix the.
So am I,
Let the owner of the property pay for the cul-de-sac to improve his property. I don't know, I'm talking out loud.
Well, as you're talking out loud, there is a responsibility of the planning board as when you, not you, the body, the board, when you approve subdivisions to provide adequate surety to make sure the road is complete and finished. So that's where the town pieces come in. Now, of course, this thing went bankrupt, so that's kind of a extraneous situation. But nevertheless, we're partly stuck. Yeah, so we're going to have to partner with a private developer.
But there's two problems here. One is
There's
fixing
two.
the road.
We need to work
And the other
together.
is some sort of extension, right? But this extension was never part of the original plan.
Oh, yes.
No,
I
it
think-
was.
I think it was, yeah.
As I understood it, the original idea was for the road to go out and connect up to 115.
Yeah.
Finish,
Right. I think
that's what I've been told. Is that right, Rich?
It is.
the road
I know
was
she's
going
got
to
to look.
it was going to go all the way to 115. Okay.
Just bear with me as we're talking, just like a pause. But yes, there is.
That can't happen anymore. There's something that
Well,
stops
as I
that
understood,
from occurring.
there was a lot of ledge up there, which prevented them from,
So if you went back in your crystal ball and went back to 2006, I guess it was, in retrospect, you probably would have extended have the turnaround at the end, okay? On Phillips, I think you're getting there.
Looks close.
We're getting closer, hold on.
we'll get there.
Looks like it, maybe at the bottom. There it is. That's it, isn't it?
So that's by the police station.
Oh, okay.
Who's the engineer on record?
DeVillis. And they're still around, so. What the heck's? I know it's here. I think it's important to see it visually, that's why I'm.
Whoa.
Oh,
that it?
Hey, there he, yeah. Yep. So that gives you a good idea. So if you see, they put the layout in here, but they terminated it right here. And so this area here is where the applicant has purchased the property. So there was a long-range plan, planning board says, hey, you gotta extend to the limits of your property, maybe for future extension of roadways to connect them all together, which makes sense, that's good planning. The only caveat to that is it probably would have been better to do something down here in the event this never went through. Because now this lot, this is only temporary, it's an easement, there's no layout, there's not a physical layout there for the road. This is just constructed on private property right now. So to create the layout, to end the road here, that's where it comes into the property owner. So the idea
But
is,
if I'm a town resident,
yeah,
what I'm hearing is.
I'm not asking you as a town resident to pay for it, just so you know. Go ahead.
Well, you are, because the bond we have doesn't cover it.
I didn't go that far yet. It may not cover it. Then, if it doesn't cover it all, our first approach is to the property owners within the park to make up the difference. Yeah, not the taxpayers as a whole of the town of Norfolk, correct, yeah. So, I'm glad you clarified, because no, that's
Good,
not our,
good clarification.
Now, okay, so if it goes to the property owners in the park, and I'm pretty sure not all these properties have been sold, I drove through there
no, they're not all
a
sold.
few months ago. Who does, so is who owns the other properties? Because they went into foreclosure.
What you call, actual,
So I mean, is it,
Island Power Light owns quite a few of the
okay.
the vacant lots. And the compound, to compound matters more here, is that the detention basin
Yes.
and the septic system are on a lot that's in tax title, which originally were supposed to be in an association, and the land was supposed to be held in an association, and the association was supposed to pay whatever taxes on it,
Right.
and the maintenance for those two things.
That's what was my next question, is there an association? You answered that.
And there is no association.
Okay.
So what's happened kind of ad hoc, if you will, the majority property owners have acted as the trustees for this right now. So there's kind of a structural framework that we need to put in place too. And we're a party to it now because we own property in there.
Right, it sounds like, yes, there are several issues there that,
Yes.
I mean, several issues that need to be addressed, and someone needs to take that leadership role in that business park. And unfortunately, that probably, because now the town is a property owner, that probably falls onto the town.
Yeah, so the,
Well,
But it does
So
not,
what-
I would
doesn't
argue
have
that
to.
the first thing you do is you need to create the association. Then once the association is created, they have the leadership to resolve the
There you
rest
go.
of the issues. right?
Yeah.
So it's in the town's interest to get the association created and then let the association deal with the rest of the completions of the projects, right?
I like that idea.
we can, that's a good possibility, yeah, go that way. But, so I'm gonna be meeting with council tomorrow anyway on this one, just to
So the
kind of
one,
unravel this.
the one property owner that seems to benefit from this, because it seems like from that temporary cul-de-sac, you can get to all the lots that are in the park.
Mhm.
And the one person that seems to benefit from what you're proposing actually isn't in the park. He owns adjacent property that has no pathway in. Is that correct? The person at the end of that page to the
Wait.
right.
He has this here.
Yeah, but then there's a whole nother
No,
parcel.
there's the boundary that you showed on previous drawings seems like it's outside the park. Is that my imagination? Like where that paper goes white.
Yeah, the outer limit of the layout abuts.
That's where you are proposing to put the cul-de-sac. That's
Yep.
the person that benefits from having the new cul-de-sac. Nobody else
correct.
does.
Maybe, but that property also borders Pond Street.
Borders Pond Street.
No, there's another lot in between.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
That's why I thought they couldn't connect or
Yeah.
something, yeah.
There's a lot of it. No, that's why, I mean, that's why there is a benefit to him, and potentially he would help us
Yes, okay.
get to the end line, and maybe the end line is, theoretically, that piece of Phillips that's now Shire.
Rich, there's a lot right there on the other side of that extension.
Here?
No, up, move your hand up a little bit. Okay, now move it closer to your body by about 6 inches. Keep going, keep going. That's the one. That's got a shell of a building on it. It's been sitting there for years.
Yeah, Island Power Light owns that.
That's the question, okay.
Yeah. And just preliminary discussions from them, they're trying to sell that off. I mean, the one thing is trying to move this thing and finish the subdivision would help
Right.
sell the land, because it's,
Yeah. It would, but I think Aaron's got the right approach, is that there's the whole drainage issues and got tax issues, and I think that the community there or the business park there needs to create an HOA or a POA or whatever you want to call it, and work together to work through all these issues. And the business park would be better for it down the road.
yeah.
And then we could work with them and help them, let them, obviously we could let the association know that there is money in this account for the roadway to help with those improvements. But
Well, when the...
Yeah, we'll have to figure out the mechanics of if that
When-
goes that way, again,
Right.
money to a,
Well, I think we wouldn't give the money to them, but it's part of the roadway fund that the town, right? That money is set aside for the roadway, right?
right.
Right. So it can't be designated for anything else, necessarily.
No, I thought you were saying to have them finish the road.
No, I'm sorry. Let me recap. So I think, what I was saying is I think Aaron's got the right ideas. We need to put it would be advisable that an association would get put together, and the association works to resolve these issues. We let them know there is funds available for the road, and that would be in conjunction with the DPW.
Agree.
And then the cost of the road, cost to finish the road would be determined to be X. And the funds would either be adequate or not adequate.
Right.
If they're adequate, wonderful. If they're not adequate, then what?
Excuse me.
Who comes up with the additional money, the town or the association?
I think it probably would, we probably want to start from the ground up, basically,
Yeah, I don't
right?
know.
So,
Well, we got a lot of work to do before we get
yeah,
there.
whatever,
Most
maybe
of
there's
these,
not money for trees, perhaps, so maybe we're not putting a tree
most of
down
these property owners,
Sidewalks.
or a sidewalk.
most of these property owners bought their property probably after the bankruptcy, right? So there was no association at the time.
Right.
There might have been a few in there early.
Well, so it was never association, there was formed.
That's the question.
Yeah, no, there was, yeah.
Before the bankruptcy, there must have been a couple of property owners in there.
No, there was, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there were, but there was
never an
no,
association for it.
No.
Yeah, okay.
And it could be a challenge to get them all to agree to put association in place, but it would be to their mutual benefit down the road.
yeah, yeah.
No pun intended.
Yes, I did not intend that.
All right, what's next?
Bond for completion. So
Okay.
So,
the bond, is there some action we need to take now, or you're?
no, I was just telling,
doing that.
kind of,
Okay.
But you gotta
provide
give
information
notice-
to
You gotta give notice to everybody in the park that we're
yeah,
doing this, right?
yeah.
And we'll presumably pull the bond at the next meeting,
Potentially,
Why
yeah.
would we pull the bond before we deal with this association
so we have the money.
to do a project we can't complete?
to a project. Because of the issue here, you mean,
Because
at the
it's too
end?
expensive.
Yeah, but you're going to do the road anyway, and you need the money to do the road. So one way or another, you're getting that money and you will use it.
So you're pulling the bond to finish the road that exists today.
Yes, and the town will do that. Town will do that.
And so is the DPW.
And presumably, we could figure out a way to resolve that other issue prior to the road
Right.
being completed, so that it can all be done in one swell swoop. But if it doesn't, at least we can finish the rest of the road.
Right. And forgive me if, I'm not sure if you mentioned this at the beginning of the discussion, but is the DPW putting together an estimate?
They
For-
will be, they will be, not
Okay,
yet, yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Speaking of DPW,
yes,
you get that sidewalk number yet?
I did.
Wonderful. What is it?
Trying to figure, we could talk about that. So you want to talk about the zoning first, or the sidewalk?
Yeah,
or-
keep going. We'll come back to that.
The sidewalk?
Sidewalks in a
All right.
minute. Yeah, anyway,
Okay. So want to touch on the zoning?
yeah, go ahead, do the zoning. Yeah.
So the first zoning potential amendment was actually just to remove that provision in the affordable housing bylaw relative to allowing a two-family home in the subdivision to be, well, it could be a market rate and an affordable, any combination. I suppose it could be, just be two affordables too, I suppose, you know, any variation of. But so the issue was, I don't know if you,
We ran into it in Cranberry Heights.
yeah, so it really came to play with Cranberry
That was
Heights.
the only time that's ever been.
That was the first time
Yeah.
that was being looked at to be used. And the issue came, really centered around how do you, and it's not a duplex, okay, it's a two-family. So the notion it's a box, a house, that's a two-family, that has two interior divisible, homes in it,
Right.
but from the outside, it's a single-family home.
Made to look like a single,
Made to look like a single-family home. One driveway,
consistent with the rest of the architecture. in-
consistent with,
What was the affordable when you
Right.
drove by was,
Everybody would know, but, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Everybody who lived there would know.
yeah,
but-
as
okay.
best as you could to try to make it indistinguishable.
Yes.
But the problem, or the challenge, at least sense into it, was in order to get to that place that the board would be comfortable, I don't know, it doesn't seem that it's workable. At least the way subdivisions,
Was it a case, though, because it was the only two-family house in the whole development, which made it obvious, versus if you had mixed up the development a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
And I really think that's why we came to the decision. We looked at different images of the house, but it was always going to be obvious, and to the people living there as well, this
Yes.
is the affordable house.
yeah,
But that's because everything else was a single-family house.
correct, yes. Yeah, that was the challenge. How would you, and then actually some of the neighbors in the adjacent around it came to at least one, maybe two of the hearings and started to question, well, how's that gonna,
Yeah.
blend in so it's not
But
distinguishable?
if you would
So-
have thrown in a few more two-family houses, maybe you could have got the same return on the property. And
Yeah, so it doesn't allow for two families, that's the thing.
Okay.
Because it's a single family, those, the R1 zone doesn't allow two family. You can convert a one family to a two family if it was in existence in 1961,
If what was in existence,
the house,
The house.
original
Oh,
house.
the original house.
Okay.
So essentially, it's not allowed.
Okay.
All right, so that's the, now, there's an option to remove it, or it can stay on the proviso if somebody tried to come in again and say, look, here's the challenges we had, you really got to make it, you got to figure out to make it really work. So, it could go, you can leave it if you want, I'm not, but but at the same time, it's on the books, and perhaps people think that it's something to avail themselves to, and it just seemed like there's another, I mean, we're addressing affordable housing. You could do it inclusive or within the development, or you can do off-site, or you can do payment in lieu, so we have other venues
Right.
Yes, we do.
to address affordable housing, so it's not the only one.
And having lived through the experience of trying to make it work, it was pretty tough to try to do, and we were not really successful.
Would it have been better if there were, if it was a larger site? So like, say there was 30 houses, so you would have had maybe 3 two-family houses. Is that what the issue became?
Well, I mean,
Yeah, you can.
I think some of it was a principal issue, right? I mean, there's very little affordable about living in Norfolk, Massachusetts. Certainly in a large, single-family residential subdivision, right? So, I mean, you can force, and I think Ann spoke to this probably the best, you could force this condition upon this neighborhood, put the house up to market, and no one's gonna bid on it, because it's just not that's not an affordable location to live. It's not a sustainable, long-term decision, right? So we can force this in because it's a part of our zoning guidelines, or we can start to welcome some of the other options that are available to us, like payment in lieu, or developments downtown in, say, a B1 district near the train station, things like that. So I think that was kind of the what hit it home. And I think it was Ann's presentation saying.
So is that just clarification with Susan?
Oh, Susan,
Jacobson.
sorry.
So that's all right.
Sorry.
Just for the record.
I know who you
But I knew who you meant, but just for the
I-
folks at home.
I think it was that statement that, look, even if we build this affordable house, I'm gonna have a hard time putting someone in it.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. No, that was, and ironically, we did, so I was at a SWAP meeting, which is the Southwest Area Planning Council of MAPC, and we were talking about affordable housing today, inclusionary bylaw. We did talk about this actually provision, which, again, is, in other towns, similarly, towns in our area, that's a challenge for, if you're in a more urban area, and you have different housing choices, and it's not, it's a lot easier to kind of work with it. Whereas it's not the same. It isn't, so.
All right, well,
So the idea is to put it up to remove it.
yep, so we need a vote to support that recommendation. I think we ought to do these one at a time.
Yes, yes.
So-
There's really nothing stopping someone from,
Proposing
well, there is, because this allows it because two-family homes aren't allowed, so this specifically allowed it. But if we strike this, there actually is no you're not allowed to build a two-family house, even if it's affordable.
Now, that might be a different conversation, not, to look at it, but, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, we can,
I think we ought to strike it.
I think we do, I think we should too, because the only way that you would build this two-family house is if it's one house in a subdivision of other single-family
Yes,
houses,
it's-
which we're
yes.
never gonna find a situation
Right.
that's affordable. So if
Right.
the conversation about allowing two-family houses is a different conversation that should be had outside of this conversation.
right.
One other comment then. So in the case of Pulte that built my site, they built houses elsewhere.
Correct.
Could they had to build like, whatever, 4 or 5 houses.
Mhm.
Could they have built two-family houses someplace, and now are you restricting that from occurring? Right, they had to build, was it 4, because they built 42 houses in Norfolk?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that would have been an option for them, and those would be standalone houses. They built them over near Gump's, I think, I'm not sure.
Right.
They did 5.
They ended up doing 5.
did 5,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, they did 5, yeah. So you still wouldn't have, it's
They
still
built all
not,
single-family houses. but
yeah, they did.
Would that have been an option for them, and does it even matter?
So this was on the books
Yeah,
back then?
yeah,
Yeah.
I know it
It would have
was.
been because it says in a subdivision.
This is
Yeah,
right,
in a
that's, I'm just
subdivision.
saying,
Subdivision,
just
it couldn't be
reading it.
freestanding.
Yeah, I think you're
It
answering
says
the
in a
question.
subdivision,
Yeah, in a
yeah.
subdivision.
Okay.
Besides the fact we
Even
don't
though
allow-
the affordable houses weren't built in the subdivision that
No,
they
no,
built?
no, so that's an off-site, but
Yes.
even off-site, we don't allow two-family.
You don't allow,
With the exception of what I said, which is,
1961.
and then, in the mixed use,
Okay,
that's,
okay.
but even that.
You can't do two-family,
you
but
can't
in
do
concept,
two-family.
you could do something like what Al's doing
Right,
over
right,
in,
right.
over in the Pond Street area, where it's multiple townhouse units.
Multiple townhouses, correct,
Okay.
yep.
On
Okay.
Valley Street there.
Good.
yeah.
Valley
Yeah.
Street.
We can vote.
All right, so we need a motion to support the striking of H3E2 from the Norfolk zoning bylaws.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. The chair is going to request a 2-minute break. I'll be right back.
removing the two-bedroom limit.
Yep.
So as I was just saying, so I wasn't aware at the time, as you mentioned, that I'm aware that it was discriminatory towards families, zoning by bedroom limits. I wasn't. General's office, Department of Housing Community Development, to the former town council. Language that I pulled out of a 2013 email that was recommended from council back in 2013 to bring to town meeting to remove that limitation on bedrooms in the B1. Now, we are working on B1 zoning. You strike this provision, there's still overall is a cap of 16 bedrooms in the B1 under the present zoning. So it's not as if,
That's what it says right here, yeah.
yeah, so by removing this, we would address an existing zoning that does discriminate against family, which I think obviously is well, from a planning perspective, the right thing to do.
Did you bounce this off town council
I'm going to talk to him tomorrow about it.
tomorrow?
Yeah, but having, read through the email from the former town council, and knowing what I know, and as a planner, it seems prudent to bring it forward to town meeting at this time. It doesn't need to wait for the B1 zoning work, because, like I mentioned, Walter, even if the B1 goes to town meeting, this was going out anyway, because we knew that in the B1 work. So I don't know exactly when, we're hopefully anticipating the fall, right?
It's a good warm-up for
It's good warm-up.
the zoning conversation.
It's a good warm-up for the zoning. But I don't know, it could shift a little bit, so I think it's the right thing to do, obviously, to bring it to town meeting in the spring, explain why, and have the town's meeting vote on it.
Well, I think that we should support this based on the overdue response to the state telling us, hey, the Attorney General telling us, fix this.
Yeah.
But I would frame the motion to support this recommendation contingent upon approval from current town council.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So I propose a motion to support the removal of this sentence from I-4A11 contingent upon blessing from the current town council.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Moving along.
Rich, I think the use of the word bedrooms is prohibited. Like, I don't even think we can say 16 bedrooms. So you might want to ask council about that.
Really, what has there been law about changing that word?
I thought so. I thought it needed to be units, not bedrooms, but at least the 16 bedrooms isn't saying you can't, it's not saying how many bedrooms you can have in any one
That's right.
unit.
Right.
For a lot.
So maybe it's okay, but
Yeah.
I thought part of the language was to move away from regulating by bedrooms.
Well, that's the full move with the B1 work, to go by dwelling units and not bedrooms, but I'll check with council. I don't think that's, because you're not saying 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom. It's just a ultimate number of how many bedrooms per site, which essentially kind of mimics really Title V in a way, right? I mean, Title V says how many bedrooms the flow is, and doesn't say it's 1, 2, 3, whatever,
That's a good point.
per dwelling unit. But I'll speak to council on that. So the last, I'll call them bundle changes, is relative to the C6, no, C5, sorry, not C6. C5.
C6.
C6? I thought it was 5.
I don't think so.
Is it 6? All right, hold on a minute.
This is the Southwood, this is the...
otherwise known as
yes.
Southwood.
Yeah. Otherwise known as Southwood. So we had a meeting there has been, as I probably mentioned before, you asked the last, renewed interest in the Southwood property. The renewed interest in the particular company is Lincoln Properties. So they're a national company. They do, you can go on their website and look, and they do work throughout the United States, and they do work here in Massachusetts. So they have a little bit of a different interest in the property in really, I'll call it two pieces, essentially. One is to do high bay industrial warehouse space.
Like a distribution site? Do you...
No, it's not distribution.
Walter doesn't want to use those words.
Don't use that language,
No, that's why I'm asking.
because it's
C6,
pejorative
right,
in the
yeah.
sense that people immediately jump to Amazon.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a lot of grief around the Milford Amazon site.
Yep.
So you don't want to bring all that grief down on us.
So what would the
This-
difference be, though?
Well, the difference is that, for one thing, this gentleman is proposing a large warehouse, 500,000 to 600,000 square feet,
500,000
on
square.
spec. So he doesn't have a building, a tenant lined up yet.
Okay.
And so any work we do with him would be contingent upon him coming back to say, okay, I've linked up with business ABC, and then here's the conditions of which they need to operate. Now, the planning board has to approve that, so it'll have to be a sequential
He will
approval.
not build until he gets a
No,
tenant?
he'll build, because he knows, well, he says he knows, that as soon as it's finished, he'll have people lined up saying, I want to rent it, I want to rent it.
Field of dreams, yes.
Yeah, that's what he feels.
So he would permit, get it permitted, and I don't know if he'd build it, start building it before he had a tenant, but he at least would permit it.
But once it's built, you can't regulate who goes in it. So
So,
what's to stop
well-
Amazon from going in?
Well, so one of the things we talked about on the permitting end of it was conditioning it about how you want to permit. You want to permit on the worst-case scenario and address all the impacts related to it, or you permit at one level and you got to re-permit it if you don't, on spec.
Is he building the shell? Or so is he not building anything, or is he building the shell and then building parts of the inside as needed as he gets tenants?
It's going to build an empty shell and sell it. Rent it out to somebody who will fit it out, right?
The way,
Well,
he was not all that specific, but the impression you got was he would build a building, leave it as a shell. and
Okay.
then- and then-
Leasehold improvements, whoever leases
Yeah,
it's going to do
leasehold,
all the
yeah.
Four
improvements.
Kicks will rent it and fit it out.
Sure.
Right.
I got you. Okay,
Yeah,
just
fit it out.
asking.
That-
Yes.
But why doesn't he just come get a special permit?
So,
He wasn't even at that level yet. He was just talking about
yeah, so
other issues that
But why
concerned him.
are we changing zoning to accommodate a certain site?
Because of the other things that he's...
well, so first of all, because of the fact that at least this site's been marketed for, I don't know, 15 years now, somewhere around the range. And so testing the market and what the options for the property economically, where it seems to reside is this high bay warehouse space. There's a market for it because there's a value in that to develop that in order to be able to take down the hospital site, clean it, do the take a dirty site and have the money to clean it up. That's where the market is. But there's a second piece to this, which is to do a friendly 40B with the town, not up at the top where a different location on the property, to get I'll call it a scaled 40B that's not 200-300 units, but a number that gets us to 10% and provides a cushion
Cool.
and scaled appropriately.
It's 200 units.
That's okay. Whatever they wanted. As long as you're
Well,
saying they're
it's
going
not
to take...
quite, it's not quite,
180,
well, it might be a little less than that, but
178.
point being, we're not, the idea is to not have a mega rental project, is to have something that's scaled, that works for us, but not as a heavy demand necessarily even on the town services to offset it. So the reason why the zoning change is needed, because warehouse is not allowed.
These are not zoning changes, these are allowed use changes.
Well, you gotta add that to the zoning to allow it,
Yes,
yeah.
but I mean, we're not changing zoning from commercial to residential.
Right.
We're limiting some prohibited uses and adding new allowed uses.
For everybody, not just for
Is
this
this
property?
the only C6 district in town?
It is the only C6.
Okay.
That's it.
That,
It's-
okay.
It is Southwood property.
And that's
Okay.
the only
That's the only
applicable-
yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
So it is just for this property?
So
which
really,
is
yeah,
change.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, interestingly enough, the other zones do allow warehouse as allowed use. It doesn't in this zone, so that's why it would be just added.
C1, which is the area right around the
Four kicks?
115, 1A intersection, all those
Yep.
4 quadrants allows warehouse. This one doesn't.
Yeah, so where Joffran is, C1 allows warehouse.
Joffrin isn't in C1, is it?
C6 is also a huge district.
No, Joffran's,
87 acres.
well, Joffran's in C1A.
Is it?
Yeah.
Does it extend that far up?
It does.
Yeah.
All right, okay, I take it back.
That's okay. So,
Yeah, C6 is 87 acres up there,
I'll vote no.
bordering on Walpole.
so just
Next to
for,
it, by the way, just an update, as you may recall, Walpole's in the process of putting a recreation field right across the town line on 1A from that property.
It's got to be more than 87 acres.
I think they listed, I think it's 88, I mean, give or take.
What's the prison?
Yeah, but didn't we get free property or something from Walpole, or we purchased property? Was that the CPC thing? You're at more CPC meetings than I am, Donna.
What's more than 88 acres? The Southwood property?
South was 87.
87 acres, yeah.
So what,
What are you referring?
Oh, this is C5.
Right.
yeah.
And C6 is
I was referring to C5.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is bigger, right. C6 is small. So again, the idea is to add some uses in there.
Cool.
And
C5 is the prison.
and make some changes to accommodate this. Now, ultimately, as I said in the email to the board, there is the deed restriction for the hospital use on the property. So until that goes to the legislature and gets removed, he's not gonna be able to do this either. But he's willing to go through the permitting process, knowing that if the zoning were to be able to allow for what he can do, to go through the permitting process for this use. And to remove the deed restriction from the Southwood property, it is going to require a town meeting vote anyway,
And legislative.
and legislative approval. So there is kind of a check and balance safeguard here as far as the sequencing goes. But he's not even interested in really looking at the property without being able to know that he could do what he wants to plan from a development standpoint. And the 40B is not really relevant to the zoning because that overrides local zoning. It's really the,
But again, we're going to negotiate for years to try and figure out how to convince him to build the friendly 40B after he builds the warehouse.
I didn't think that was the issue, though. I thought,
not necessarily.
yeah. I had asked if there was a letter of intent or memorandum of understanding, but you said it's not necessary, that he will go through with everything that you're agreeing to with him.
Yeah, because remember,
I think, I'll let you answer the question.
No, it's okay.
I think you gotta tie the proposed changes to something other than this potential user, right? That we don't know if this user's real or not, or what the end goals are or not. If you want to come in and say, let's make the C district the same as the C1 district, that seems like a reasonable conversation to have, right? We could say that right now, and then the C1 district allows warehouses, it sounds like, so we're good to go from that standpoint. But, like, C1 district doesn't allow outdoor commercial vehicle storage. Like, I don't think we would allow it here either.
I think we
Outdoor
would. I think,
yeah.
you know, if If there
They're only
were
proposing
17
adding
empty
warehouse, though.
trailers waiting to be
Yeah.
filled and they were stored overnight, we'd probably allow that, waiting to be,
So then,
you know, if it is a
I
warehouse.
would just say
Right.
change C6 to C1.
No, you want C6 to be a separate zone, so you can deal with it independent of the other.
Well, then take all of the language from C1 and apply it to C6.
The builder isn't even requesting that. He's really only requesting warehouse, right?
He's only requested
Yeah.
warehouse. But the other two things that need to happen, though, to make that work is, number one, is to strike out the limitation on the building footprint, which is in that C6 zone.
Why was the limitation there in the first place?
Why is it there in the first place?
I think that's our maximum footprint anywhere in the town, right?
Except the C1 district, apparently.
Yeah.
No,
You allow larger buildings any more than 50,000 square feet in the town?
No, what?
Yeah,
I'm
that's what I'm
sorry.
saying.
Yeah.
I thought that's our largest footprint anywhere.
I think you're right.
Well, in a world where we're getting grief about having unrestricted areas in our B1 zoning conversations, why would we have unrestricted commercial space? I mean, you could put in a 300,000 square foot warehouse and Amazon will take it.
Well, he's talking about 500,000 square feet. I mean, I think,
Yeah, so I'm saying.
this location in relation to the B1, they're not the same.
I don't know, tell that to the residents of Pond Street, that they're gonna have a 500,000 square foot warehouse there.
they'll love it.
Well,
They'll
versus
love
a
it.
contaminated site with a building that's falling down. I know what you're saying, though, and I would agree with you. It's not going to be an easy sell.
Well, it's gonna be an easier sell than 130, 140 condos in there.
I don't have enough information to make an educated decision on this evening.
What
Personally.
information do you need?
What do you need?
What else do you need?
What else do you need?
I don't know, I need to think about it.
Okay. But do you need other information to digest? Do you want Rich to get more stuff from the developer?
I think it's unwise. 3 years of negotiations in Southwood, it was all, you don't negotiate to a single developer, right? Because I was trying to negotiate to a single developer. And it was beaten into my head that you don't change bylaws, zoning, overlay zoning for a single developer.
No, you don't, but if you allow a warehouse in there, John Smith can come along after this guy bails out, and he could put a warehouse in there.
You could, but a warehouse of 50,000 square feet, like the rest of town, is one thing. A warehouse of 500,000 square feet is a completely different conversation. I don't know if
I don't think it's so completely different, it's just a different size. I'm willing to support a 500,000 square feet, or even 600,000 square feet on that piece of property. I think that's an ideal application of a commercial business to that property. It offers minimal demand on town services. There's no impact on the schools. There's minimal impact on the fire and police. The truck traffic can be restricted to 1A and 115, or even down 1A through Rentham Center and out to 495 that way. Boy, I tell you, if I were a resident down in that area and I knew development was going to happen one time or another, and somebody going to put in a warehouse as opposed to 100 or 200 condos, I'd be happy with it. But that's just me.
Let's see what they say. Invite them in.
We have.
But didn't you also,
said we
didn't
want-
you
we want
want
to
the
put a
40B?
warehouse there.
Didn't you want the friendly?
Oh, you mean invite
Yeah.
the resident?
Invite the Pond
He's
Street
willing to
residents
solve our
in.
10% problem as
say.
well.
Our one local Pond Street resident isn't here tonight.
Well, I couldn't plan on him being sick, but
Why do we need to strike this building footprint if you can get it by special permit?
the idea was to streamline the permitting, so it would
Okay.
just be with the planning board as opposed to,
I mean, I personally don't have a problem with adding the warehouses. I just,
the footprint size.
well, the footprint size, I mean, that could be done by special permit.
It can be, yep.
I mean,
I think if it were to stay, that at least should shift to the planning board.
yes.
I would not be that concerned about trying to get a warehouse to be there, but I am concerned always about 40B.
Yes.
And as long as the plan is including the friendly 40B that solves the problem and gets us to 10%, it appeals to me.
What, I think Aaron mentioned this, what kind of assurances do we have that it is going to stay a friendly 40B? I mean,
At this
Is there-
point, we don't have any insurances.
okay.
And there's no way of packaging it.
I'm going to say this again, right? We spent 3 years talking about the Southwood development. 2, easy, right? We spent at least a year talking about the B1 zoning district. I think it's not prudent to come out of tonight having a half-hour conversation about changing the zoning in applications in a district in town without giving this more thought.
That's, all right, you're entitled to that position. I
So-
support these changes.
So for tonight,
So-
what you're doing is to move it to the warrant and hold a hearing and have further discussion. That's what tonight's about,
Right.
to move it off the, to move it along. To at least have that conversation. So you could have that conversation, which then, there's a hearing and then there's a town meeting process that you would have to go to get the zoning changes.
And is there some point where it's not left to people's imagination? Is someone going to provide something tangible that we might even look at and say, here's how we see this, where the warehouse is here?
Oh, absolutely, John, but
but I'm saying
that's
before-
months away.
But
It's
can't even get
months
a,
away.
can't even get an estimate on what it might look like. Because I think when you put it before the town, and you're gonna say there's a friendly 40B with 150 units in it, and there's this 500,000 square foot, and everybody's just gonna see it on the road. You know, like, they're driving right by it for 10 minutes because the warehouse is so long. In reality, you might not even see it because it's set so far back. That, just to help it along through the process.
Yeah, I know.
So it's more, so it's a little bit of the dynamic of the sequencing a little bit. So to get to the more specifics on what it would look like and how it would be arranged is really about the site plan process, the review process, and the details of the proposal. You know, to answer some of those questions. The way the property is being marketed is, the property is being reduced, the price, as before. I don't know the exact price, but at least the price is being reduced. And whoever buys it has to close within 60, 90 days. And they own it, and they have no permitting. So they have to assume full risk.
Gotcha.
So
So they want the roadblocks removed before,
So they would like to have at least assurances that they believe there is a market for a warehouse that they could do there to, again, take down the building that's got asbestos, clean up the landfill there, clean up the oil fill there, get it cleaned up and remediated for part of it, and then do the 40B for another part of the property to get the town to 10% to deal with that aspect of it. I don't,
All the same developer would manage both the 40B development, or is it,
so most likely he would probably get somebody else to do the 40B because they do larger scale 40B projects, not smaller ones. But there are other ones. And again, the overriding arch with this thing is there's a deed restriction on that property.
yeah, but you had said something before that it's kind of you want the deed restriction in place almost until someone's locked in with a build, because if you remove the deed restriction now, you'd have people.
And we're not.
Yes.
So, at least at that
It's a
meeting,
timing issue, right?
you could correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I was there at the meeting.
oh,
I
yeah.
understand.
I brought that up at the last meeting, or
Yeah.
somebody did. I think I did, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, from the meeting last week was talking to Representative Dooley,
Who was at the meeting?
who was at the meeting, that the process to get the deed restriction removed, go to town meeting and then go to the legislature, works, is not a big lift if it's a good project for the town of Norfolk,
But not until that is known.
until that's in place. He understood that.
What meeting was this?
Not
Yeah.
only did he understand it, he made
Wasn't
it-
What
a-
meeting was
he made
this?
it-
Because I thought we had part of that conversation at our last planning board meeting.
And then there was a follow-up meeting
Okay.
last Friday.
All right.
So we had met with
Sean Dooley?
Sean Dooley and Sean Chrism from Lincoln Properties. It was
Okay.
the VP of Development.
Okay.
And then we had Collier's real estate brokers there who were marking the project for the Archdiocese. So without knowing that, listen, if what he thought he could do on that property was already in the zoning, this wouldn't even be a conversation. But if you recall, the previous company that came to the site from St. Louis, I think I mentioned before, it was the same thing. They saw this warehousing use as a viable use in the market for out here, and the 40B. They did not see that previous marketing plan that was done and the work that was done before as economically viable because of what needed to be done to the site to get it to that level. Don't forget, they have, you talked a little bit earlier about the Lincoln Road property with the MCP process. They might be able to do an AUL there on the site and not have to remove it all because they're putting residences right there.
Right.
They could put stuff,
But again, the original question is what's stopping them from doing everything they want to do as part of a special permit process?
it's not allowed. They can't do it.
Why not?
It's not allowed in that zone.
Warehousing is not allowed in that zone right now.
Yeah, it's not just a square footage thing, it's just warehousing.
It's specifically not allowed.
And fundamentally, I don't have a problem with that, adding the warehousing to it. The rest of it could be done under a special permit. Well, not all of it, but.
Well,
So,
the idea of if
Nowhere in here does it say allow warehousing. Right, so
yeah, it does.
where?
On the bottom of the front page. So, see the bold warehouses?
Yeah.
So add to section,
Oh, this is new language.
this is,
new
yeah,
language,
that's
yep.
new, yeah.
yeah, they're separate articles.
So here's a question. So timing of all this, I recall reading some email about everything that we're going to put in the warrant for the May town meeting has to be
Submitted,
by the 13th of February, which is
Correct.
in 2 days from now.
correct.
So if we decide to kick this can down the road, then that misses the May meeting.
Right.
That's right.
Correct. Yep.
So, what are you looking for tonight? I'm assuming you're looking for something so that you can get this on the May
Yeah, I'm looking
town meeting. So
for,
what are you looking for tonight?
there's, one article was the building scale, so we talked a little bit about that.
Right,
One, which is just removing it and reserve it for future use.
right,
In the alternative, you could submit a companion, which is switching it from the ZBA to the planning board.
right.
That would be just an additional article. The one below it is actually adding warehouses to
Yes,
allowable uses,
Use, right?
yep,
which is not there
Right.
now.
yep,
And then striking 3 uses that are, one is garaging of commercial vehicles ancillary to allowed a special permit use.
okay,
So that wouldn't be a special permit through the ZBA anymore.
right,
That zone
right,
only. And then outdoor commercial vehicle storage, which would be part of a warehouse or,
I gotcha.
So you're trying to restrict the distribution.
right. And then the truck terminal is pretty similar to probably what a warehouse, somebody might deem it.
All right,
And so those are the changes to facilitate that all.
so if we move forward and approve these changes, can we recommend this changes?
So you're just starting the process right now. You
Can-
can come back and vote them down,
Okay.
so you still
Early town meeting.
Revise the language.
That's where I-
revise the language.
That's exactly what I want to know. So if we say, yep, fundamentally, I'm not 100% with these, but let's move forward to the next step, we could still do that and make changes down the road, prior to I'm assuming there's some deadline prior to May, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, before the
You know,
thing gets
but
printed.
You would have,
Right.
well, yeah, you would have a hearing and.
But we would have probably 2 months, maybe, to review this in more detail and fine tune it. Roughly, six weeks or whatever.
Yeah, although this is kind of simple stuff, so it's either,
No,
like- I mean, like, there's not a lot of language changes here. So I
Right.
guess I would just.
No, I'm just,
Suggestion, yeah, to put it, so the special permit.
Right.
To the planning board, I would add that in tonight potentially, so it's there.
right.
Yeah.
No, I'm just trying to, it seems like we as a board are not in unison. So I'm
I
just,
agree, yep.
I'm just trying to see if, is there a way that we can move this forward but still allow us to make changes at the next planning board meeting?
If provided, if it's like within the scope of it, yeah, yep,
Okay.
yeah, you definitely, you can do that.
It seems
And I
like
would
it's
have
either
s-
going to be a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Yeah.
I think that's where we are.
This is exactly what got us in trouble with the B1 district zoning changes, right? We got it approved, we got it on the docket, we kicked the
Right.
can down the road.
I know.
Next thing you know, we were sitting in front of the advisory board with days left before the meeting.
And they were-
like, you guys, this came through too fast, I can't approve it.
Right.
So if there's any consistency in the advisory board, I don't know how this would be any different from that scenario, because this is even faster than that scenario. So unless there's some general acceptance and agreement that this, what's
I
being
hear ya.
proposed is a no-brainer.
Right.
So, just in terms of processes that
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced,
I think one difference is that you've got support of the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen behind this, which I
I
don't
think
think we
these are
had
much simpler.
necessarily.
These are much simpler changes than what we were trying to do last time.
I do think they are simpler changes, and they do apply to one zoning district that is special. But I do hear what Aaron's saying is that if we decide to move forward with this, we have to quickly,
Involve the advisory board, selectmen, everybody else.
yes, we have to quickly involve all these other parties.
Sure. Experience says that's not going to happen.
And
you're taking an 87-acre site and removing square footage restrictions from it.
I actually think you're just negotiating with one developer, and if this doesn't happen, then who knows, we'll probably reverse the thing. I'm not,
Not necessarily, because I think by putting, by agreeing to add warehouses that allowed use, the others come along with it, really, the other
yeah,
three
so,
come
and
along with it.
the only thing you're doing to appease the one developer is the restriction on the square footage of the warehouse.
Not necessarily. Joe Smith isn't gonna wanna buy 87 acres
I agree.
and put a 20,000 square foot warehouse on it. He's,
So for round numbers, the other developer who came forward, he was talking the same neighborhood of square footage for
Really?
warehouse
Yeah.
distribution.
Right.
Okay.
It wasn't like,
You could, in theory, add warehouses and keep the other language.
you could.
you could. So,
You-
That doesn't stop the negotiations with the proponent.
well, the only thing you
I think
would
you still
wanna
want to
cha-
strike.
Well, so
yeah.
you wanna,
Change those other
so
items.
change
special
2 to
permit.
the planning board,
Yes.
okay?
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to, but I think it makes sense from a permitting standpoint to have it
Mm-hmm.
together. They work together. And the last 2 you do need to do because they're in the prohibited section, so.
But why would you have to do, keep them?
Well, or add by special permit.
Yeah, sure. Or keep them.
They are
I think those last two are fundamental for a
they're fundamental
warehouse.
to the, so a warehouse is gonna have,
Store your commercial vehicles inside.
not gonna.
You're not going to.
You're gonna store your goods inside.
So instead of a 500,000 square foot warehouse, build a 700,000 square foot.
But you're going to
warehouse.
store your empty trailers and trucks outside.
Yeah,
I mean,
no warehouse stores their trailers inside, they store them outside.
right,
They back them up and leave them overnight.
right,
And fill them up, and next
Right.
morning they're gone.
right.
But I think we typically care because it's an eyesore, right? But if it's so far back from the,
You're not going to see it.
yeah.
We s- Okay.
So
So,
I would say the kind of revisions to this proposal, I think move it forward,
yep,
would probably be to add two things. One is to switch it,
which one are we dealing with here?
so.
Building
L-
scale,
Yeah,
all right? What do you want to change?
I would, one would be to strike it completely, the other one would be to insert planning board instead of ZBA. Yep.
Well, so what do you want to do? You want to offer a motion to support both of those?
Yeah, then you can,
Decide later.
you could always get rid of it. You can't necessarily add it in.
Okay.
I mean, if you don't,
All right. So
that's
then-
okay, at least
Yep.
majority.
Well, let's see.
Hopefully.
Yeah, let's change ZBA to planning board.
And
Yeah.
then,
And then,
the second one is
no,
L7B.
stick with L4A8,
As far as the square footage.
square footage. You said there's two options in that,
Well, completely striking it, or
right, and you want...
just allow special permit through the planning board.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
you want to put forward both of those options at
Correct.
this point.
Yes.
Here, let's deal with that right now.
Oh, all right,
before we
one at a
move
time,
on.
I'm sorry.
One at a time.
Yep, okay.
All right, so we need a motion to support forwarding to the warrant for L4A8, building scale, two options. One, to strike the language, "No building footprint other than offices shall exceed 50,000 square feet except by special permit by the zoning board of appeals." And the second option, to leave that language there, except to change zoning board of appeals to planning board.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, now, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay. Now, we have a motion to amend section L7 of allowed uses of the Norfolk zoning bylaws by inserting the following new language in bold print in alphabetical order. Warehouses. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay. All right, now, these last two here.
Well, we should do L7B.
Yeah, we should do L7. All right, see, we need a motion to support the proposed amendment to section L7B, special permit uses by the zoning board of appeals of the Norfolk zoning bylaws by deleting the following strike-through language: garaging of commercial vehicles ancillary to an allowed or special permit use.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay. And now we need a motion to amend section L7C, prohibited uses in the C6.
No, pause, sorry. And then that one was, the second one was to make that, to change it to planning
ZBA.
board.
On L7B also?
L7B.
There's a second one there?
Second option under L7B?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, all right. We probably need another motion to cover that, since we
Sure.
didn't cover it the first time we voted.
Right.
All
Sorry,
right, so we
yeah.
need a motion to amend section L7B to have a special permit for use by the planning board for the Norfolk zoning bylaws for garaging of commercial vehicles ancillary to an allowed or special permit use.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, to see if, the next one is we need a motion to amend section L7C, prohibited uses in the C6 district of the Norfolk zoning bylaws by deleting the following: outdoor commercial vehicle storage or truck terminal or motor freight station.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Right.
Nay, okay, all right. Well, we'll move them to the
warrants.
warrant
To the warrant, yep.
and take it from there. I agree, it was a
And
tough
of those
3 years.
options, would all of those options
Tough
move
3
forward
years.
as warrants? All individually, okay.
I think that,
All right, back to the agenda. Housing Choice Grant, Doctor, it's up to you.
there was no update for tonight.
No update for that. All right, Mill River Heights, Ariana Lane, are we signing an insurance bond? Did you get?
We don't have it yet.
Don't have
so-
it yet, all right. B1 Committee Developments.
Talk tomorrow.
Pardon me?
We'll talk tomorrow.
Dr. Barrow? Yeah,
So we have a meeting tomorrow, 7 o'clock,
here,
in
downstairs.
downstairs.
Downstairs, okay, very
Okay.
good.
Technically, just to be semantically clear, we don't have a meeting.
I'm sorry.
It's an advisory board meeting
Yeah.
where Josh is making a presentation. I've invited you guys because I'm responsible for getting you on board with,
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
with
Yep.
the approach.
Means I gotta read this thing, huh?
Yes.
Isn't a lot different than the November one, is it?
Yes.
Okay, so we got to read it. All right.
All right, moving along. That's really, oh, no, we have a
Sidewalks.
sidewalk, February 29th.
Not
Saturday,
January
the
29th, February.
At 9 o'clock, right?
Right.
We need to decide which one.
Which
we wanna
one
do
first, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I suggest we just do 201 first, right up the street here,
it's fine.
and then go over to.
Where do you want to meet?
six-
You want to meet right here?
Let's meet, yeah, we can.
Or do you want to meet at the post office?
Yeah, the post office, probably.
Yeah,
We could
post
park-
office.
Park in the
Meet-
back of the
meet
post
at-
office and walk across the street, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that would be good.
Meet at the post office at 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock,
Okay.
post office. All right.
Okay.
I do have an update on the design review board.
Yes, sir.
So we met, I don't know, a week or so ago to review the design guidelines, and they were very well received, which were part of that report.
Yep,
And actually, we were talking about removing it from that report, so maybe they're no longer a part of that report.
yep.
But they were well received by the board, and I think Bob sent a letter to Rich saying we're in support, and would be
Try to
good to
forward
start
it to
using
them.
these as soon as possible, even though they're not approved.
Mhm.
So that's good news there.
For the design review board?
The design review board voted to support the
Use.
proposed design guidelines for the B1 district.
And does it change the influence that the design review board has? Or it just remains recommendations that you can provide? Or you actually have some more force than just
I don't think it formally changes any
authority?
authority.
Okay.
So we talked a little bit about that with Josh yesterday, and so we can kind of look as we go forward with the B1 to maybe incorporate them into the site plan regs for the planning board.
Okay.
And reference them probably a little bit better in the site plan review bylaw, approval bylaw, too, going down the road. And by the way, they actually, as a, just information, the ZBA is at least using them as a benchmark guide for the 40B on 194 Main Street. If you weren't aware of that, but, so the
At what address?
194 Main Street,
194 Main Street. Oh, that's the
the Borks site.
Big L site, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Davis Square is the architect doing the peer review for the Board of Appeals, and they, forwarded to them, and they're using some of the principles in those guidelines for that.
Okay. A couple of follow-up items from last meeting. You mentioned that you did have a response from DPW about sidewalk fee contribution. Are you happy
Yes.
with it, or are you,
Well, so, trying to figure out a reasonable dollar amount,
yeah?
because the sidewalk is roughly probably $125 a linear foot.
Okay.
So if you take, the frontage for X lot, it could be a significant amount of money, well beyond what we had been doing in the past. So roughly what the number is equated to in the past, from the ones I looked at, is like $10 a linear foot.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I mean, that's,
That's why they never get built.
why bother?
right. So the discussion was maybe there's a number which is maybe, you know, $25 a linear foot or something, you know.
100.
The DPW said 125? That's their estimate? I mean, that seems appropriate.
Yeah, so
Whether you
the,
want sidewalks or you don't.
I mean,
100 sounds good. It's a win-win for everybody.
well, just apply the math. You can think about it tonight. I think I calculated, could be off, but, so for Camden, it's like $71,000. I think they have about 500.
Wow.
or they can build it themselves, and if they can
Well-
do it cheaper, great.
They can. So the question is, but also applying this, is it going to be linked to things? So that's kind of, I don't know, you have to massage it a little bit
Yeah.
to figure out, do you want the building sidewalks hanging there that there's no connections?
Well, we either collect enough money as a town to do a whole road, or it's going to be piecemeal for many years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because the properties on both sides of them as well just isn't developed. They still have horses on one side, right?
Right.
Yeah, so eventually, if that got developed, it might connect to something.
It might. Or, so the other options potentially is if they're not putting the sidewalk in front of the property, if the money went to the town to then go get money to build more sidewalks, to the Complete Streets program, that's, we completed that process. So towns are getting sidewalks built through grant funding. It's just that you need some of the survey and then, it's more, a little bit of survey, more a little bit of design, but more so survey to then apply for that money. So that's kind of the if they're not constructing it, put the money towards applying to get more money to build sidewalk.
All right, tell you what, noodle it, come back with a recommendation to the board, and we'll chew it up at the next meeting.
And you can noodle it. It's-
We can't noodle without you.
All
I
right.
can't noodle by myself, so.
Any news on our favorite topic, streetlights for Bristol Pond Estates?
I was going to ask.
We have a drawing showing where they should go, right?
Yeah, so I spoke to Island Power and Light,
Yep.
and I sent them that schematic. And that schematic, he in turn submitted to Mike Rosano with a price to connect the electric to those lights. I have to follow up with Mike Rosano now, so.
Yeah,
Yes, Island Power and Light has the lights
physically
in the
their
warehouse,
possession, yeah.
and they're paid for,
Yeah, yeah.
but the wiring from Marshall Street to there has to be done and installed, and
Yeah,
that's the second piece of it
yeah.
that Mike needs to execute.
And two of the streetlights are out close to Marshall Street in that big area. And the third
The
one is
open
up at
space?
the end of that.
Yeah. They're all off the open space, but one.
Oh, are they?
Yeah,
I thought there was one in each cul-de-sac. No?
no.
Oh,
There's
okay.
one up where the
Okay.
the horseshoe is,
Yep.
and two down at Marshall Street.
Okay.
So Mike had reached out to me. I reached out, called Jared O'Neill, said, hey, can we kind of move this along? And Jared emailed me back and said he sent the proposal to Mike, so I'll have to follow up with Mike to get a,
Okay, and since we're on the favorite topic of streetlights, tell us a little more about what's going on over at Fox Run.
There's a street light up already. I don't know if they're all up, but there's only 4 of them, I think, 4 or 5.
oh, there is a street light up?
There's, yeah, right across from my driveway, but it's one house up. So I thought there should have been a rule that, you know, it's like walking on a trail when you're going in the woods with your dog or something. From this marker on this tree, I can see the next marker. But you cannot see the next street light from the street. So they made some decision to just put street lights where the transformers are or whatever.
Right.
So that's why there's only 4 of them, I think. But it is what it is.
So the original approval for Fox Run, there was a waiver granted to the developer to work with the DPW to locate where the streetlights would be. So that where you see all the mass of the bases are, that's what off, those are locations that were chosen with DPW back in 2012, I think it was, actually. Now, there was a resident who is on Hemingway that wanted the light moved, not in front of her home.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, so, and then the neighbor across the street wanted the light moved to a different location, but DPW picked that spot because it's somewhat the midpoint of the curve going down Hemingway. So that's why they put the light there, or that was the location. So the alternative offer to the resident, because they were concerned that it was going to impact their home with a street light out front, was to put a shield on the back side of it. So I don't know, I'll have to go by and see if the light's up or not. I'll take a look at it, but,
Okay.
so.
So, okay. Circling back to Bristol Pond, what are the other outstanding, the lighting I know was the current
The other
milestone
outstanding,
that we're trying to
The
accomplish.
landscaping.
yeah, the other outstanding issue was the landscaping, no, two other things. Landscaping between lots,
Right,
which
No-
the
no cut zones or something.
which the builder has to negotiate with the property owners.
right,
And the remediation of two no-cut areas that were cut,
right,
which the attorney, Elizabeth, has said didn't occur at the hands of the developer, but occurred at the hands of the individual contractors who built the houses, who didn't look at the plans, didn't realize that they shouldn't cut the trees there, and they cut the trees there. And that has not been resolved yet.
okay.
I think that's it.
Yeah, the challenge is that, you got, again, this has come up, there's a few subdivisions where the trees have been, as part of the plan, there's the plan development from the planning board on private lots, so
Right,
it's
sensitive.
sensitive and it's going forward, I think we need to have a realistic way to address it, so that if it goes awry, there's a way to remediate it in a more effective way, I guess.
Right,
Yeah.
Because at the planning stages, they have the trees on these lots, and then they go ahead, once they go forward, they have a site plan, they develop the site with the home, they get the septic system, and things can kind of change out there in the field, and that's where it gets a little bit, it's hard to try to plan ahead when you really haven't planned out a whole house lot yet.
right.
So, I don't have an answer yet, honestly, how to deal with it, but
We're trying to get the lighting done.
the lighting first.
That's
yeah.
the urgent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have requirements for developments to have homeowners associations, right? We can't impose that on them, that's still their choice. And that,
No, I think
We
we
do?
make those as part of the conditions of the decisions. To,
With the open space ones, although that one doesn't have one, but with the newer open space ones, there are associations.
I'm just asking, because I know that,
Yeah.
that came up before with regard to those houses. There's no homeowners association, probably still isn't today.
No, there isn't.
Yeah.
There is not.
but we do put that in as a requirement in our condition in our decisions, do we not?
For now,
Yeah.
yes,
now,
for
no-
open
no-
space developments, yes, but not then.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah.
Looking ahead to next meeting, we've got Norway Farms request for a bond reduction. That should be okay. DPW is going to give us a cost to complete, right? We can look.
Yeah, so just a quick, yes, part of it's a cost to complete, and then the other part is just a confirmation, the means and method how to do the berm, so that we get the right cost to complete. That's really the.
Yep.
Remember that, yep.
And then we've got the request for curbing modifications in Preserve at Keeney Pond.
I put those as seven, or asked to place them there so I could have DPW come to the meeting for both those items.
Yep. And then we've got 6 Hill Street.
Yep.
Which, I'll be talking about the impact statement and who's been contracted to provide that and what the contents of it are, et cetera,
I'm
et
sure
cetera.
it's going to be continued, so.
Yeah. You know, we have 7 Phillips, which is continued from tonight too, is right? Actually, 19 Shire, we should be calling it 19 Shire.
Correct, yep.
And I don't know what else will come up between now and then.
But 360 will be there next.
What- oh,
360 Main
yeah,
Street.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And, yeah, and that's it. Yep.
Do we have any other business?
Nope.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You can shut her off.
All right, so now we got to finish signing these.
Yeah.